All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Monday call. Sorry for being a few minutes late. As you guys can see, my background is different. I had to set up new internet at an Airbnb that I'm at today, as I've been doing remodels on my house all weekend, and the remodel got pretty severe. We went in this weekend, so I got so intense that we actually had to get an Airbnb. So we're almost at the finish line for the remodel. Some of it fun and cosmetic, some of it related to some water damage. Been quite an event working with these these folks here in Bali that sold us the home. It's interesting living abroad, and I don't want to generalize. I'm sure it's different country to country, but I'll say living in Indonesia, very fascinating. A lot of these businesses, and like most of them are owned by expats. So this is not like a representation of Indonesian people at all. But a lot of the expat owned businesses here, they don't understand marketing for the most part, which I think is fascinating. Like there's a huge arbitrage to bring Western marketing skills to developing nations. Like it's pretty fascinating. Like there is a big opportunity there. Even if you look at like paid media. Like most of them don't run any paid media, or when they do it, it's atrocious, or just the cost per click is really low. So fascinating arbitrage there. But also like just the customer service here is so bad, man. And again, that's most of these are owned by expats. Um, and maybe customer service is the wrong way to describe it, but fulfilling on promises. In the business that we're in, like so much of what we do is I give you my word, we're going to close this date, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And we don't really mess around. And this is like a small, like mom and pop business. Like our land business isn't a monster Fortune 500 company, and yet we still operate like that. And most businesses in America do as well. So it's very fascinating dealing with these like realtors and real estate offices and contractors and whatnot. Of course, there's a spectrum. There's amazing people out there as well. Um, and that the customer support is a fascinating one because they're hyper responsive, but they just reliably drop the ball. Like I built a motorcycle here. What was supposed to take 45 days took 6 months. When we bought the house, they sold us the wrong house initially. Like just so much ball dropping. It's shocking to me. So, anyways, let me know what you guys got up to in the chat this weekend. Give me a little note down below. I am going to try to keep this call to 2 hours today. I do have to go back and manage the contracting crew. So hopefully we can keep it right around 2 hours. Said that last week. We went 3 hours and 45 minutes or something like that. So we'll see what happens, but I'm going to try my darndest. Let me know in the chat. Yeah, obviously yesterday was Mother's Day. Unfortunately, couldn't be with my mother, about 10,000 miles apart. But we're doing the event in Scottsdale, and my mom's coming out, my mom and sister. So I'm excited to see them. And for you guys that haven't already and you want to RSVP for the Scottsdale event, I'll put it in the chat for you guys. I'm not sure exactly what we're at currently in terms of max capacity. Once we hit it, I'm going to have Juan send out an email to everyone. I think we're pretty darn close, or maybe we've eclipsed it, but it doesn't hurt to at least get your name on the list in case we haven't. And I'm sure some people are going to drop off. So if we've got your name on the list, let's say we've got 70 people that apply, we'll kind of work through the folks that are past 50 if anyone drops off. But for everyone that does make it, we're going to be sending out emails this week. Um, it's a casual event, right? This is not quite on the level of production as a LIA mastermind event, a little more casual, a little more chill, and it's free. What else, guys? Anything in the chat? No one do anything interesting for Mother's Day? Jerry went to New York City. Will hanging out with his mom. That's it, huh? One of the best gifts you can give your mother, and I learned from experience, or best gift you can really give anyone, give them a piece of land. It is the ultimate gift because for the general public, any piece of real estate is fucking insane. Like, it's an incredible gift. And with our skill set, you can go pick up a 5 acre in Costilla for $2,000, $1,000, $500. Like there's so much land you can pick up for a few $100, and it makes a phenomenal gift for folks. Um, So I'm a big fan of giving out land for for presents, and it's very, very easy to do. Best gift to give mothers is the grandkids. That's probably true. That's a good point, Keith. Keith, how many kids do you have? Two. Nice. Yeah, I've been having baby fever recently. I don't know. I saw a family on the beach this weekend. I was like, man, I think I really do want kids sooner rather than later. I think I'm very excited to be a parent. I've always known that, but it hit me again. Okay, let's get this party started. Everyone see my screen? Two thumbs up. Yeah. Whoops. All right. First on the list here is Byron. Byron says, do you factor in improvement value in scrubbing properties or pricing offers? Would it make sense to, for example, scrub out properties that have $100,000 of assessed improvement value, et cetera, et cetera? No, so I only look at it. I mean, you can, there's nothing off limits about it, but I only look at it in terms of the assessed improvement percent because, of course, it's relative, right? So if I'm going after super expensive properties, I think it should be based off a percentage, not just like a flat number. You can play with that number. I mean, I think somewhere between like 0 to 5% is usually where we're, yeah, 0 to 5% is usually where we hang out. But we have some tolerance there. And I've been playing with this in our business, which is tolerance on the assessed improvement percent. And I don't have anything to say that's a great idea yet, but I've been playing around with this, maybe 0 to 10% or something like that. And then also being a little more flexible on the square footage if there is a structure. So I always used to do like 0 to 500 square feet. I'm like, well, what if I did like 0 to like 2,000 square feet? And like maybe I'm not going after the nicest houses, but what I've found is, and as some people on this call have found, like Keith, those are layup subdivided opportunities. You got that 40 acre with a kind of derelict 2,000 square foot home on it, but no one's marketing to it. Does that answer your question, Byron?
It does, but just maybe one quick follow up. So imagine a situation because I do this. So I'll sort my Excel spreadsheet by improved, the absolute dollar amount of improved value. And let's say I have a bunch of properties that are kind of in the 50 to 100,000 range. And then it says assessed improvement is like 80,000 or 100,000 or 150,000. Is that not saying that, and then I'll look at the property and I don't see any structures. But is that
Mhm.
not saying like there's something that's going on there that's made that property so much more valuable that if I send out an offer for, 35,000, that it's just going to
Yeah.
get ignored? And why don't I just scrub that out of my list?
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, dude, it could be a multitude of factors. And what I will say too is like the county assessments, depending on the county, usually are just woefully inaccurate, either too high, too low. And that, I mean, usually there should be evidence of something. What I do find though is a lot of like old burnt homes or things like that, where they still pull it as if it has a home on it. But if you're not even seeing anything where the square footage code, that's weird. That is weird. I mean, what I would do is if you could just go and like mock simulate a comping situation with that deal and see what comes up. So just take one of those, like, hey, if I offered 35,000, because if there's no structure on it and it's assessed high, there might be a similar chance that the adjacent properties have similar improvements. Like if this one's an operational farm and that's what they're going off of, maybe the adjacent ones are as well. And seeing if I could just take a really tight radius and comp out some other properties, assuming they might have similar features. It's not a guarantee or similar improvements. But I think using the assessed improvement percent should weed out these situations because now it's going to be a percentage. Um, with that being said, though, dude, I mean, to be honest, depends on how much of this stuff is making up your data set. It's probably a slim minority. Like how many
Yes,
properties
it
in
is.
that category, right? So when I see these slim minorities with like data sets that are hard to interpret, I think there's more upside to roll the dice on them than there is to be too strict. Because what happens is so many other people think the same way. And then I'm always
Yeah.
looking for those little pockets that everyone's missing. And I find that you can get great deals there just from showing up. So kind of a weird situation. How many times has that cropped up where there's nothing on the property?
Yeah. It seems like this one kind of I pulled it. It was quite a bit. And I'm just like, gee, should I scrub all these out? Or,
Yeah.
I'm at the point now until I get a couple deals. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't want to send any mail to anyone who, if I'm just wasting my time. When I start getting a few deals, I won't care. But
Yeah.
right now, I'm just like, I don't want to send any mail that's going to be a waste.
Yeah. And that's fair. And that's fair. I mean, again, if it's like a dozen or 2 dozen, keep it in there. If it's hundreds, I'd probably remove it.
Yeah, no, 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 it's not hundreds. It's not
Yeah,
hundreds.
I think you're pretty damn safe.
Okay.
Um, have you mocked it out? Like kind of like the idea of comping it as if it came in at that $35,000 offer and seeing if there's any discrepancy there?
Yeah, a little bit. I have looked around at, like one time there was two parcels adjacent owned by the same person, and one of them had this huge improved percentage, and the other one didn't, even though they looked exactly the same. And so I just got rid of the one and mailed to the other one. You know,
Okay, that's fair.
again, I'm being too strict with my scrubbing because I'm just trying to keep my costs down
Yeah.
until I get some success. But I think you're right. Like it probably just makes more, there's more upside than downside, probably just
I
saying.
think so. And look, I think it's wise to be super targeted in your mailers. Now, I think there's like if you do want to really whittle it down, there's other levers that are really worth playing with that have a lot of bang for your buck. So, obviously the ownership length I've talked about this before. That's the number one factor that we've seen from
Yeah.
automation. One of the other interesting ones, are you using Land Insights or what tool are you
Yeah.
using?
Yeah. Yeah.
So inside Land Insights, you'll pay a little bit upfront for it, but if you use a premium skip tracing feature in there, this is kind of inside baseball, but premium skip tracing feature is going to give you the age of the owner. If you remove anyone from that data set that's younger than 50, that makes up almost all of your sellers are going to be over the age of 50. So there's little things like that,
Okay.
being really targeted, really precise with your scrubbing. There's other factors like I've been playing around with what will probably end up being a feature inside of Land Insights, but playing around with these like lead scoring concepts, like AI lead scoring, where we can take a multitude of different factors that we know speak to like motivation and then layering them together. But from all of the like the back testing that I've done in my business, ownership length and age, those are easy money. So, anyways, that and really good scrubbing, physically scrubbing out bad properties. Are you doing any scrubbing around exclusions or inclusions for like ownership names?
Oh, geez, yeah.
Okay, okay. I
Trust
just
me,
wanted to
I'm
make sure.
scrubbing like crazy. I'm scrubbing too. I look at, when I'm done all my scrubbing, I've done my pricing. I'll go through and I'll look at like previous sale data, and if they bought it, 7 years ago for 80,000, and the best I can do is offer 70,000, I just scrub it up.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
trust me, I'm erring too much. But that the skip tracing tip for the age is helpful.
Yeah.
I'll do that. But no, trust me, I'm airing. I'm
Okay.
scrubbing far too many properties. I'm spending, hours and hours and hours and ending up with like 150
Yeah,
parcels.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
my problem is too much scrubbing, but I figure it's easier to start there and then loosen up a bit
For sure.
than
And if
so.
look at it's like if you really think about it, if you're willing to do that work and you build up the skill around it, because there's some nuance to it, boy, I would still argue it's worth your time. You know what I mean? Like you look at someone like Kay Walker, she sends out, I think, 4 to 5 thousand letters a month. She'll do for well over 500,000 this year. Anthony Reese kind of in the same category. I think he sends less mail. So scrubbing works, like being maniacal about it does pay dividends. Now, of course, we still have to have
There,
a, what was that, Byron?
no, I was just saying those two are two people I've focused on in terms of kind of mentor, modeling after. And
Totally.
I mean, I'll look at property I see a bunch of the same last name. I'm like, oh, they have a big tie to that. They got family there. They're not selling to me. Scrub
Yeah,
that out.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I'm taking that model, and plan would be to loosen up
Okay,
over time and
okay.
get more mail out. But for now, no, I'm very aggressive scrubbing.
Perfect, man. Yeah, the only thing I would add, like, and I'm sure this isn't news to you, the other two ingredients, good copy, good offer letter, all of that stuff, and then incredible acquisition process. And if we can marry all that
Yeah,
together, you'll be in a good spot. And then there's just about time. We just got to let the time work in our favor. So, anyways,
okay,
man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Preston, another Virginia deal, man. I don't want to give away any of your secrets, but it seems like you've become the local Virginia savant.
Yeah, it's for I'm not sure why either. I mail plenty of other states, but I just keep getting these Virginia leads.
Yeah. Is it making up
Uh,
the bulk of the deals that you're doing in your business or no?
I mean, yeah, yeah, definitely. Almost half of everything I've done so far is in Virginia.
Why do you think that is?
Hmm, that's a good question. I have a few really good realtors there,
Okay.
and I think I know the state pretty well, so I know where the hot spots are, and I'm I you have to in some of these markets you have to really look at the comps carefully.
Yep.
This is kind of one of those deals. Some of the best deals I've had were in Virginia, where markets that you might not think are very special, but apparently they are.
Yeah, that's the very interesting thing. I think this is why it's worth talking about briefly. Virginia is not an outlier, incredible state. You know what I mean? So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, why is someone like Preston doing so much business there? And I think it's kind of threefold. Like you're vertically integrated, so you've got the title companies, the realtors, all that jazz. And the second thing is it sounds like you just know it really well, whether it's exemptions or pricing or things along those lines. Maybe it's only two things, not three things. Is there any, does that
Yeah.
sound about right? You think that's really where the success comes from?
Yeah, and I think I know how to price it pretty well because Virginia is a very old state. It's the oldest state, really. So it's the counties, they're not super big, and if you know how to look at topography and stuff like that, then you can price things pretty well.
And how much mail are you sending currently? Just out of curiosity. I know you had turned it off for a little bit. Now you brought it back online, right?
Yeah, I'm sending about 9 to 11,000 units a month right now,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'd rather not stop it next year because I did that for 4 months and getting this locomotive moving again and getting the leads in, it's
Yeah.
takes a while when you
Yeah.
shut it off like that.
I think it's never a good idea to shut it off unless you just don't have a proof of concept. Like if your mail's not working, then okay, for sure shut it off. But that wasn't the case for you. Obviously, being
Yeah.
a new dad, I mean, that matters more than sending out mail, so it's understandable. And half of that mail is going to Virginia right now, roughly.
Mm, I'd say maybe a third of
Okay.
it. Yeah.
For anyone listening, don't get any ideas. I'm not saying that Virginia is a honey hole and you should drop everything and start working there. It's really, and what I found is pretty much spot on with what you're saying. Our best markets, counties or states, usually aren't the best county or states in the US or like on Land Insights. They're usually really good, but they're typically not the best. And so you wonder, well, why are we doing so well here? I think people discount the value of being vertically integrated. Good realtors, good title companies, drone photos, all that stuff goes a long way. It saves us time, but it also just makes us more dangerous. And then knowing the state exemptions for subdivides, um, pricing, all that jazz. So yeah, it's a big advantage once you get vertically integrated. All right, let's take a look at this deal. Is it two properties?
Yeah, so they're adjacent to each other.
Okay.
So this isn't there isn't a ton of data out here, ton of information out here. I do see that the comps, which is often the case in Virginia, the comps, a lot of nearby comps, they have a lot of not so great issues. So uh okay, yeah, that's right, property. Yeah, so I think these two are fairly nice properties,
Mhm.
and I think the comps nearby are not so nice. I found a comp that I'm pretty sure is comparable to this, and it's a higher price per acre. But
Yep.
there's quite a bit of stuff here that's not so great.
Okay. What was your offer to the seller? Have you made a package offer, or is it just for the one to start?
It was just for the one. Yeah, he actually has a lot of this is an estate he's trying to clear up. So there are actually a lot of other properties he has here, but he wants to see how these go first before he sells me the other ones.
Okay. I mean, I don't just off the bat, I don't think you go wrong buying 13 acres in Virginia for 30 some odd $1,000. So just off the rip, that seems pretty safe, but we'll see how true that is.
Yeah.
Hope only puts it at 45, so maybe I'll eat crow on that. We'll see. Um,
It's because of the comps.
yeah,
There are some close by comps, but they have slope issues, or other things.
yeah.
Or for example, there's two really close by comps that are basically on the same road that are only 3,800 an acre, but they're slopier than these properties, and also there's no power nearby.
Mm,
So
okay.
that would drastically. There's no power for thousands of feet in any
Okay.
direction.
You could also think about, I don't know what the road frontage requirements are for subdividing, but you could do a flagpole lot here, come in like this, and then kind of hook to the right and open it up. Keep this one nice and wide in the back as well. You could split it. It probably wouldn't be that difficult. As you know, Virginia is pretty easy to subdivide in. I don't think I
Yeah,
know requirements or what the story is. Okay, so this one, and let's just pull up the next guy here.
yeah, it's right next to it.
Is it adjacent?
It's that one, yeah. Clarine Moorfield.
Okay, so I was already looking at the 15.7. I had it backwards. Okay, cool. So they're adjacent, total 29 acres. And then based off your underwriting, you said 120. Is that right?
Yeah, because I found a comp. I when I use this, I typically look at the distance. I use I organize it by distance, and I found a comp that it was 78,000 for 15 acres, I think, and I thought that property was somewhat comparable to mine.
Okay. Yeah, I see that here.
Yeah, so the cheap ones right there, the 3,800 ones, those ones have no power nearby.
Okay. I mean, it's not this. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to cut value in half necessarily, but I see houses. It looks like maybe improvements here. So there's no power for 1,000 feet, you said?
Yeah, because I pulled up the APNs and I dug pretty deep. I pulled the APNs and I pulled up the coordinates and I used the Google Map Street View and everything. And there's no power on those cheaper lots.
All right, let's check this out. Um,
Preston, you're sure there's no underground power?
Um, if there is, there's nothing built around there that's utilizing it.
I'm saying
That's
if that's an important factor for you, you can call the power company and they'll tell you. Like it's a good
for sure.
question to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this doesn't look like a remarkably special property. It does come with like this membership for this adjacent campground that has like pools and whatnot. They also offered owner financing. So did they get 78K cash? Probably not.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, I think it's a nicer property than yours. It still seems like a big jump. But let's play around. Let's go look at a couple others. Looks like a big jump, I mean, relative to these two $42,000 comps. I don't know why there's such a far cry difference between them. So 12.86 at 66, free farm perfect H, et cetera, et cetera. It's got the water feature. And you look like you have, I don't know, a seasonal creek or some kind of water feature on it. Dude, I think you're pretty much in the same territory. I don't know if you'll get 78, but I don't think you're going to get 48. So I think 120 is a pretty fair estimation. I think we could definitely eke out a bit more if we could parcel these out into 4 lots in total. Flag here, right down the middle on this. Deal becomes a
Mhm.
lot more interesting. Again, pretty damn easy to do. If you do that, or even if you just think about flipping it, as long as it's not a double close, I think you're going to have a tough time accessing those and marketing them. So it could be a good candidate depending on the price that you pick it up at for some kind of brush hogging. Have you dropped a pin out here just to see how it sits?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how does it look? Is there any access point currently?
It's just wooded right now.
So that's, when you pull up to something like this, that's a hard sell, man. Hard sell. Um, I think that's, yeah, it would be my first line of defense. And it's a great negotiating chip as well.
Sure.
But
Okay.
other than that, I think your underwriting is pretty damn good. I would say 120, 130 pretty much all day long, as is. And then if we split it, I don't know, probably in the 160, 170. If we look at what's on market right now, let's just go look sort by distance. So there's a 16 acres. See this 16 acres for 68,000. Been up for 89 days. So why hasn't this sold? Oh, just the one that doesn't have power across the street from it.
Yeah, those are on that's on the same street as the one as
Okay.
that cheaper 3,800
Well,
comp.
it's looking better and better for you. Here's a long, skinny one, 64,000,
Yeah.
15
Yeah, I
acres.
saw this one. That was real. This one's real funky.
Yeah. That is super long, super skinny. So, anyways, I think your underwriting's pretty spot on here.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Cool, man. Any more questions on that?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Sweet. How's business going?
I mean, it's I last month we got a couple of contracts, so not too much, but that's because I basically started marketing a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
And right now I'm shaking the tree real hard, and I feel like some things are going to follow the tree soon, but we'll see.
And how long did you stop marketing for, just for the people here?
From October to the 1st of March. So, I mean, from the middle end of October to 1st of March. So about 4 months.
It's a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah, your business it just shuts off. I mean, it was good because I went back to all my leads and I really tried squeezing them. And there are actually some that I'm still squeezing from my 2024 mailers. If you go back to your CRM,
Yeah.
it's amazing what you can pull out. But I need some fresh meat right now.
And what about on the dispo side? Are things turning over?
Um, Dispo, I have a lot of odd properties right now. For example, I have a commercial property in Michigan that it's going to need a very special buyer. I have a couple of okay properties, and those are going to take a little longer to sell. We're currently reducing them right now, and we'll see. But yeah, not much happening on the dispo side for me right now. But I think it's mainly because of the properties I have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It makes sense practically, but there's also a deeper level that doesn't really make sense per se. My business always does better, even if it's not directly related to work, like doing like real work in the business. But it's like when I'm thinking about parts of the business or just spending time there, whether it's me doing things or thinking about how to improve it, I always get rewarded more. So of course, like you turn off marketing, there's the obvious, well, you get less leads. But I kind of feel like when we step away like that, like everything in the business starts to slow down. Kind of like where attention goes, energy flows, like that whole concept. But I've really seen it play out. It's very fascinating. And the reason I've seen this play out is running Land Insights and LIA, it becomes very clear where my intentions going in the other areas, and the business takes a step back, even if there's no like clear rationale as to why that should happen. So I think there's layers to it. So hopefully you're getting back on track now.
Yeah.
I've never had like the best dispo month, the best acquisition month when I've been not spending time at least thinking about these things. I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know how to describe it. Maybe I did a good job.
Yeah.
Bad job.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be real. I mean, I've kind of taken a bit of time and energy off to focus on my family and stuff like that, and I think that's definitely affected the business a bit. But I've talked to everyone else, and it's still everything's still normal. So I just have to be consistent and keep sharpening my tools.
Yeah. And you still
Oh,
have, in a cool way, much room to
I'm
still
about to turn it
grow.
on now. Thanks for the reminder.
Oh, sorry, Henry. You really only had one full calendar year of doing this thing. Like you're still, pun intended, with being a new father in your infancy in this business. So there's still, I mean, sky's the limit for how far you can take this thing. Like you really pick up and ran with it your first year. So I'm excited. I'm happy to get you back on track full time. Um, all right, man. Godspeed on that deal. We'll move over to Andrew's question.
Thanks.
Andrew says, what is the best way to approach realtors and the best thing to say to them when vetting and trying to get an opinion of value on a property? Well, first things, I think that people do become overly reliant on opinions of value. So that's like the first question I would ask is like, does this deal really require it? And there's two times where I think a deal really requires an opinion of value. If you're brand spanking new and you're lost as like a little puppy, then yes, doesn't hurt to get an extra pair of eyes. But if you have LIA as a backstop, it's like you can make an argument that like we're a pretty good fail safe in most cases. So then the next point is like, I've just got a weird freaking deal. There's no comps out there. The property's super bizarre, weird improvements, things that we could never help answer, you could never answer. Other than that, dude, it takes so much work to get an OPV that usually ends up being as good as our comping or worse than our comping. And opinions of value to me only means something if that realtor's walked the property. Now, in non-disclosure states, okay, maybe that's a little less true, but otherwise, we're looking at the same data, and they just give me gargly goop, and they have no rhyme or reason for how they comp properties. It's like, yeah, give me everything in a 20-mile radius in the last year. But if they go to the property, that's worth its weight in gold to me. So without that, I think it's a lot of work for very little reward unless the property really justifies it. Now, how do I go about it? It's pretty simple. One, don't be an asshole. And what I mean by that is if you say, hey, I'm going to give you this listing and you make promises, absolutely do it. The reason that getting opinions of value have become difficult, ironically, like a lot of like the changes to the law that have affected land come from house wholesalers. So like double close stuff, that's not related to land. That's from like people doing novations in the house world. The one thing that land investors have royally fucked up though are the realtor's opinion of value because they get bombarded with these people that say, yeah, I'm a land flipper. I want to get a opinion of value. I'll give you the deal. And then they never do. So they're very, very guarded. They're very jaded. So I would call that out, right? It's like you probably get calls all the time from these other land people. Look, I'm not like that. I'm looking to lay roots and have some of my boots in the ground in a market that we plan to do dozens of deals annually. We're looking for our go-to guy or girl out here, and lead it that way. Don't even come at it with I need an opinion of value. Lead it like I'm looking for my local confidant. Then at the end of the conversation, hey, by the way, you want to take a look at this deal? It's kind of the first one we're thinking about bringing to market. Would love your 2 cents. Make them an ally first. You know what I mean? I think that's a better angle to work off of. But if you say you're going to give them the deal, give them the deal. The other thing is that we feed them leads. So when we have crappy leads that we can't make the math work, from a land flipping perspective, we give those leads to the realtors. So that's a really cool way to win brownie points. That'll make them love you for life. The other thing is we refer business to them. So if someone wants a realtor in Colorado and I see that in Discord, I actually want to jump on that one to help the person, but also to get brownie points to that realtor. And so think about it from a place of reciprocity. You've got to give them something. You can pay them for the opinion and the value, but I think that's not worth it. Otherwise, you can give them the idea of a partnership. There could be something more long-term or give them business, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my 2 cents on the flow and the approach. But again, I'd be careful becoming too reliant. To read the specifics, he said pulled realtor reports for the county, called the top 3 when I got a property under contract. I've had 2 experiences with where a realtor wanted to look at the specific parcel, got really noisy about it, asking why I was calling when I wasn't the owner, asking what I was doing with the property, why I would want to sell it right after I bought it, etc. Really weird vibes both times, but it's got me thinking maybe I'm starting the conversation off wrong. What should I say? What info should I give? So if you already have the contract, it's not really an opinion of value game, right? So if I already have the contract, I want to lead with the fact that I'm looking for a realtor to list this property. By virtue of me listing with them, I'm going to get the opinion of value anyways. And they're way more likely to take this on and work with you if they already know you've got a contract in hand and you're looking for a realtor to represent them. So you've got the luxury of having a contract. So we get to walk and talk a bit different in that conversation. So lead with that and just know you're going to get the OPV at the end of it. Did you use the double close search though? Because this sounds like it's a double close, correct?
No, it's not a double close. It's going to be one that I'm actually purchasing myself.
Okay.
But I just, the way I started the conversation, I was just like, hey, I've got this piece of property. I'm, looking to sell it. I'm trying to, I didn't say that I'm looking for a realtor, but, I was kind of like, I was, I guess, trying to communicate that, right? I'm looking to sell it. I'm trying to get an idea for what it's worth, trying to, figure this out. Is this something that you do? Like, and, of course they're like, oh, what's the parcel number? I'll look it up. And then they're like, well, what's your name? Well, oh, the owner. Well, the owner's somebody else. Well, how do you know them? Like, what's your, and I was just kind of like, I wasn't calling them before I had it under contract because I don't want to get sniped. But then I started thinking like, well, oh shit, are they gonna go and call the person themselves and try to get them to drop the contract and be like, oh, I could sell it for way more money. Why are you, or just something. And I was just kind of like, maybe I got to do this a little bit differently, or, maybe there's stuff I shouldn't say. But I would, I'm not really sure on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, is it possible they try to snake the deal? Yes, very unlikely. It requires them to skip trace them. Like there's a lot of hoops they would have to jump through to make that happen, but it is feasible. The best thing to do though, I think with it like all of life, but especially in situations, don't let them say it to you. So call it out yourself, right? So I would say instead of them looking at the APN and going through like you're not this person, I say, yeah, we're under contract. We're actually in the process of closing. Should be closed in another 2 to 3 weeks. You might be wondering why we selling it so quickly. So we run a national land investing business. We buy properties typically 10 to 50 acres all across the US. And in return for liquidity to sellers, we go and resell them typically. Some cases we'll make improvements, sometimes we flip them as is. What are they going to retort back to that? You know what I mean? And flex your expertise. Show them that you're the big dog. Like when you come to them and it's like you're like this like consumer land person who's like, I'm just looking for help. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I feel like they look at you differently opposed to think about like a B2C versus a B2B conversation. You know, when you come on and you've kind of flexed your knowledge and your authority, they're like, oh, this is like a B2B situation. I'm going to partner with this person. This is going to be a long-term business for me. So I just get right in front of it and I flex my authority. And what are they going to say? Oh, I don't like your business model. Okay, that's fine. But it's better than them going and saying, wait, you're not Billy Joel Saunders. Why are you calling me? And then you have to explain yourself. And at that point, now we're backtracking. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like just be upfront with them about what I'm doing and don't worry so much about, giving them too much information that they're going to try to go behind the back, as long as you have a signed contract, of course. But that, that's going to be that's pretty safe to just tell them straight up, like, this is what I'm doing. Because everything I don't want is them to like say something stupid to the seller. Like, I think it was like on one of the last calls with Dennis, he said that he got this property under contract to subdivide it, and his I think drone guy went out there and then just like started saying a whole bunch of shit to the neighbor, and then the neighbor's like calling the seller being like, what the fuck? Like, and I don't want the realtor to inadvertently say some shit to the seller like, oh yeah, I don't even know how they would know him, but whatever. They go out there, talk to the neighbor. The neighbor, calls the seller. Hey, there was some guy walking around on your property. They said they're about to list it for sale, and then he's calling me, being like, "Whoa, you said you were like buying it for yourself. Like what the fuck? You're just gonna flip it, like." Because I don't lie to the seller and tell them I'm not gonna flip it, but I don't volunteer that information. Like I just say, hey, I'm buying it and I'm giving you cash. And if they say, what are you going to do with it? I'll tell them, but I'm not just like, oh, by the way, I'm about to go sell it for double.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
so
Well, dude, look at yeah, it is a risk. You know, you've got to measure it. I think that the way I look at it, like if we were to like create like a formula for this, like a calculation, like the strategy that you're using right now has the same level of risk as what I'm posing, but less reward and more work. We got to call more people. And the more people that you call, the more exposure that you have for someone going and crossing you. Right. Whereas
right.
if I just talk to one realtor and I'm like stupid vulnerable, I put all my cards on the table, probably a high likelihood that I convert them, and I've only had run the risk with one person. I think it's pretty low. Does this happen? Yes, it does happen. Now, the way that you could remove the risk, EMD on every property if you wanted to, that's going to give you a really strong case, and then memorandum of contract. Even with that being said, though, dude, I've seen this happen maybe a dozen or 2 dozen times to LIA members. Isn't it weird though that out of I think we're almost at 700 deals in our land business, but this has never happened to me, not once. I think you have to ask me, well, why is that? How is a realtor never snake Sumner? I've had realtors fuck up deals to be sure, but only on the disposition side. I've never had them mess up a deal on the acquisition side. In fact, I often will talk to realtors before we have a contract, when the contract's about to be signed. I even had a deal where we didn't have a contract, a lead that we've been working for months, an $800,000 acquisition price. I had my realtor go and walk it with the seller so my realtor could come up with an opinion of value. So, like, those are high risk situations. So then you're like, why isn't Sumner getting burned? And it's because, at least I think, they like off the rip when we talk to them, they know that working with us is the golden goose. Oh shit, this is a real operator that's going to bring me long-term business. Snaking them for one deal would be a fool's errand. I think that's it. I could be wrong, but I just think that we've had so much exposure to deals and no one ever has done it to us, and I'm very loosey-goosey with it. But I set the precedent off the jump that this is a blessing to be working with us, like that kind of idea. And a good realtor will get that. Oh, hell yeah, I want to partner with this guy. And for some of our realtors, like we've got realtors in the Midwest and some markets that we've been working in for like 2 years. Bro, I've fed some of these people 50 deals plus. I'm probably feeding their family, so goes a long way. Anyways, man, is that helpful?
Yeah, yeah, super helpful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course, man. Yeah. And if anyone has any recommendations, you can put it in the chat for Andrew. It looks like some people are giving you feedback in there. So take a look, see. But yeah, dude, I think same thing with sellers, just as a rule of thumb, get in front of whatever the potential objection is before they object. Like you take away the potency of whatever that thing is they're going to dig their heels on. So if it's like, sellers are so annoyed for getting all these marketing pieces from land investors, start your conversation like that. I know you're probably jaded. I know you probably get 5,000 stupid offers a month. I promise we're different. Now that you've deactivated it, they can't use that to push you away. That's been my experience. Okay.
Okay.
Keith says, I have 2 leads in
Hey, I'm back.
Okay. Thank you, Keith. Hey, it's Keith, by the way. Keith says, I've got 2 leads in probate. One of the leads looks like a bigger challenge. Person passed 40 to 50 years ago. My contact's mother's been paying the taxes. Other family members were secretly receiving mineral rights payments. Jeez. Now they want to sell their property to me. No remaining heirs they can find. How to help them get clarity on this? Is it worth doing the work? Shit. I'm so unbelievably ignorant when it comes to this stuff. I would be weary to even give you a quality answer. Does anyone want to step up and help Keith here? Anyone that has probate legal expertise? Can we crowdsource the feedback?
So I'll say I have taken a step
Got it.
for what to do as a backup plan, but I'd love to hear if anyone has any sound advice.
What state is this, Keith?
This is in I believe it's in Oklahoma. Let me double check. Yeah, it's in Oklahoma.
And you have a probate attorney working it already?
I called my Texas attorney who may do Oklahoma also. I sent him an email. I'm waiting for him to that's the move that I took. So I'm just waiting to see if they are, they're really big land attorneys. So I'll see if they have experience in this, and if they don't, what the direction would be. But even when you have an attorney giving you advice, you want to be able to lean on a community if it's available.
For sure.
The practical experience will tell you things the lawyers won't.
Yeah. What's funny is I've still never done a probate deal to this date. We've had a lot that had false starts that we engaged probate attorneys, and typically what's blown it up in the past is wrong expectations with the seller. Like they weren't willing to sit this out for however long it was going to take. So I've said this before, and then I'm going to give you another piece of advice here. One, that the work right now is obviously to find a probate attorney, get them engaged, get them reviewing it, and then to set proper expectations with the sellers and let them know, hey, I'm going to be bankrolling this. It's going to be expensive, but it is going to take 6 to 12 months. If we're getting into this contract together, we need to look at it as a partnership for the next 12 months. What's going to happen is attorney's going to need documents from you guys. I need you on your P's and Q's. When they call, you pick up. When they email, you respond. This can't get done without you guys being engaged. And on top of it, we just need to make sure that we're reading from the same book in terms of timelines or whatever. And if it's a yes there, I will fund this out of pocket, no questions asked. Get them to say yes to it, get them to commit to it. Obviously, set up the right terms with the probate attorney, pay a little bit up front, remaining comes out of closing. Make sure that the margin's justified here. Even if it's a buy for 50, sell for 100, I still think that the risk, just in terms of how much money I'm allocating, 50 grand for the percentage return, is not good enough for me. So good gross spread in between, but I need like a 3x, you know what I mean? It's like day trading. Like if I'm going to risk
Exactly.
I need to make 3,000, so that same concept plays out here. You're providing a giant service to them. You should talk to Preston Drake. He was on the call last week, OG LIA member. He might be on this call here. I don't know if he is. This might not be applicable here, but dude, there are a lot of workarounds for probate, or there can be. And he knows them. He plays this game in Texas and Oklahoma, and he knows the law pretty damn well. And there's little cheeky things to where, yeah, there might be some stuff wrong with title, but if we can get a title insurance policy from a small local title company, that's all we need, dude. And so we really just want to fight for that. And sometimes there's ways to work around probate that he might be able.
Right.
So yeah,
Preston Drake.
Preston Drake, and it looks like Preston Own has potentially feedback for you.
Oh, well, I was gonna I was just gonna ask more questions about this.
Oh, Preston.
Yeah. Sorry, I wish I had more to offer. So, I mean, okay, so I talked to, well, I do have a little bit to offer actually, because I've dealt with this so many times. So I talked to an attorney in Virginia, of course, about this process. So probate and quiet title are two different things, because probate is saying, okay, well, this is, we have a, you have a claim to this, and this belongs to you, and whatever. But quiet title is determining who is even here in the first place.
Yeah.
And those are two different things. Quiet title can take a long time, and the every single issue, every single deal I've run to where this has happened, it always boils down to no one wants to put any money or anything down if they're unsure of a certain outcome. But that's kind of like the two. From my education, I know those are the two processes in this. You need to find out who's even there and who has claim to this, and probate is actually what puts those pieces together. So they're two different things.
Got
Yeah.
it. That's super helpful. From what I've looked up so far in the law, if the property is under 200,000, there's a fast track probate that they have there. It's like a simple one that's done in about 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So the juice will be worth the squeeze, I believe, on this, because I could buy this. I think I'll buy this for. We're at 78,000 now, but I'm thinking I'll reprice it a little bit, and it's worth 230. So
Wow. Good deal.
it's worth it to go after this. This is like one of those, if you can make this happen, I think this is a time well spent, right? Like,
Yeah.
you got to go for it.
Yeah. No, it's hard to pass on. And dude, the cool thing is, despite the return on this deal, once you crack the probate code again, you get vertically integrated for that state. Dude, rinse and repeat. The hardest part for
Yeah.
just finding the person and getting it started. Yeah, quiet title, just for anyone that's curious. Again, I've never gone through quiet title myself. Could be 6 to 12 months in most states. California could be fucking 24 months. It's for like competing claims of ownership, stuff that came from tax sales, property was inherited, but you don't really know who should be inheriting it, easements, liens, boundary disputes, anything that's wrong with the property, essentially, you can go and quiet that. And someone has to come to court to contest it. And if they don't, you're good to go. But not required for going through probate. That's a whole separate thing. But again, there's even other adjacent, easier strategies than probate, airship stuff, etc., where you just need to get a title company to record a new deed and insure it. But anyways, man, yeah, this should be pretty straightforward. Looks like Mike is closing on a quiet title tomorrow for acquisition. Damn, Mike. That's sick, man.
Yeah.
It's
interesting. This one's got a probate issue. Another one I have, it's the husband died a while ago and they didn't change the name. So that's easy. I mean, that the title company should be able to just, I don't even think that's a probate issue. It'll be a minor complication is what my expectation is.
Yeah. Well,
But there's
I think
juice in these things.
the juice is worth the squeeze, man. I like the math. Just make sure the sellers are on board. What gets tough on these deals is there's usually like 2 out of the 3 are on board, and there's like a really loud minority that wants to make your life hell. So we got to make sure get buy-in from all of them. While we were going through that, I know I always bag on North Carolina, but we just got a deal signed. I think it's Pearson County, North Carolina. buy $71,250. Dispo as a flip at 150. It's a 20-acre lot. We're going to lot split it into two 10s. Each 10 is going to trade for about 100 conservatively. So North Carolina does work. I always poo-poo it, but living proof. We just got a deal there. All right. Before we get to Cheryl's question, I am going to go and just use the restroom real quick and go pee, and I'll be right back before we keep on going. Keith, if you want to take the stage, Mike, Preston, Henry,
Sure.
Andrew.
Has anyone successfully done a quote unquote probate deal where someone's grandpappy owned the property and now it's all over the place, and it just seems like such a big obstacle to overcome when no one really talks to each other and no one wants to put down any money or do anything.
I think it depends on the state too. I'm doing a deal in Texas right now, Affidavit of Airship. So I'm not sure if that's similar to probate, but I guess it's similar, but it's just Affidavit of Airship. So basically, my seller has to get two people to attest that they know of his deceased parents. They don't have to personally know them. They just need to know stories of them, if that makes sense. So for instance, let's say your mom and dad passed away in Texas and you own that 20 acres, right? Or whatever it is, 40 acres. And whatever, your girlfriend knew your mom for like 15 years. I mean, didn't know your mom, excuse me, but you told her stories about your mom and she saw clippings of when she passed away from her obituary. So it gets weird, man. It also depends on the title company. I think some title companies are more lenient and some title companies are less lenient. I'd say the goalpost moves a lot, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
From what I've seen. So to answer your question, no, I have not brought one across the finish line probate wise. I haven't had to. But Affidavit of Airship I'm working on now, one in Texas.
Yeah, and that's reasonably doesn't take very long and doesn't really cost a lot of money. An affidavit of Airship.
No, it's pretty straightforward actually. And the title company I'm using, their attorney will handle the Affidavit of Airship questionnaire after my seller fills it out, submits it to them. It's about $350, $400. Takes a couple of days if I'm not mistaken, as long as everything else on title comes back, clear that there's no break in the chain of title. By the way, just so there's no confusion, the property I'm closing on tomorrow was a quiet claim deed or quick claim. Well, it was a quiet claim deed. Or was it a quick claim deed? I'm drawing a blank. It may have been a quick claim. Don't listen to me. It was in a quiet title. It was a quick claim deed. And the reason why it's okay is his ex-wife, he went through a divorce, quick claimed it to him back in 2013. So sorry, it was quick claim, not quiet title.
All right, guys, I'm back. Thank you for taking the mic. The one unfortunate thing about living in Bali, there's very few downsides, but the one unfortunate thing, one, I have so many meetings all in the morning. In a perfect world, I wouldn't take any meetings in the morning. But the other thing is when I wake up, I drink no joking, probably a half gallon of water within the first hour and a half of being awake, 2 coffees. So I get on this call. I've been hydrating too much. So I appreciate you guys giving me a minute to use the restroom. All right. Cheryl has a market review, Ontario County, New York.
Right.
We've had some more people peeking into New York the last couple of weeks, which is interesting. Cheryl, have you ever worked in New York before?
I have. I've had my best deals in
Oh,
New
we
York.
talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked last week. I'm new, so yeah. But
Yeah.
I've been fairly successful in New York. So
Okay.
I like it.
Okay, cool. I'm going to pull this up in Land Insights and we'll walk through it together. I assume
Thank you.
this is a brand new market for you, though, even though you've worked in the.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
cool.
But I'm just trying to really follow,
Yeah.
the instructions.
Yeah. Anyone here worked in Ontario County, New York? Anyone on this call? No? Okay.
I'm the crazy one.
Okay, yeah. Pioneer. So 0% STR in the last month, 36 in the last 3, 102.6, 234 1 year. Again,
I did a half acre. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go top down and we can kind
Yep.
of The 0% in the last month doesn't really scare me. That's whatever. The trend is pretty consistent outside of that. 53 active. The pending is super strong. You've got essentially 50% pending, which is pretty bananas. So a good look off the jump. We're obviously moving into kind of the heyday season for New York and really anywhere in the Northeast, which is now until September, beginning of October. So like for these markets, now is the time to start acquiring or even a few months prior. Now, in terms of the acreage range, you said you're looking at a half acre to what size? Oh, sorry, Cheryl, it looks like you're muted.
Sorry about that. I said I was going through the acreage bands, and again, I didn't want to put too much information in there, so I just went to the 5 to 10s, and then I looked at that band, and I looked through the sell-through rates, and then I split it up by zip code. So just really trying to,
Okay, cool.
you know,
Yeah, so from like a STR standpoint, supply, all that stuff, I start top down on the county, which I like. So that's already checked that box. And then kind of like what you're saying, the next thing I want to figure out is, okay, how do I have to break this thing up? Zip codes, polygons, subdivisions, whatever it may be. I also think about what kind of inventory are people looking to buy here. So in a market like this, I think you're spot on. It's probably going to be 5 acres to 1,000 acres. I don't think there's much activity sub 5 acres. We can quickly look. So I do like to figure out, okay, what are buyers looking for here? It's okay stats 2 to 5, not much active. There's more pending than there is active, which is funny. Okay, but we could play around with that. But let's just say we're doing the 5 to 10s. So I'm going to quickly just go and validate pricing. So I'm going to figure out, okay, is this priceable countywide acreage range first, and then we can talk about zip codes. So 5 to 10s are at a 21 on the Gini off the jump. That's a great spot to be. And that might even say that we don't need to fracture this by zip codes. You still could, and you might get a little bit of an efficiency bump, but that's a pretty good place to start. If we're sub 30 on the Gini for a county-wide acreage band, I'm happy with that, especially for smaller properties like 5 to 10. That's going to be super sensitive relative to 50 to 100. Pricing is going to be a lot more all over the place, frankly. So that's a really good sign. Now, if we break this down 10s to 20s, I'll just kind of go through the list. The trend should stay consistent. 26. It's a slight blip, but there's not much inventory, so it's just kind of a small data set. You're going to have some outlier weird stuff going on there. Same thing here. Again, it's just
yeah, it was really the 5 to 10s that I think seemed interesting.
Why is that?
I guess no good answer.
Yeah. So
that's why I'm here.
For sure. No, for sure. It's a great thing to talk about. This is very, very common. So a lot of folks, they try to like just pull out just a bracket, and maybe that bracket looks a little bit better than the other brackets. But here's my thinking. Like the 5 to 10s look good, and there's a lot of demand. The sell-through rate's really good. And maybe like the 40s to 60s don't look as good, but usually it's also a byproduct of there's just only 2 active properties. So yeah, only 7 sales in the last year. What happens though, the way I think about it is I think about the 3 land brackets: infill, and rural recreational. And what I know is that if the market's desiring, let's call it rural recreational lands, like this market is, I would say this is like 30% rural infill, 70% rural recreational. What I know there is that those buyers, like, they'll buy a 10 acre, they'll buy a 30 acre, they'll buy a 60 acre, they'll buy a 15 acre. Price is the deciding factor more than anything. And then obviously value. Are we bringing something that's a good value to the market, as in slightly discounted, well listed, all that stuff? So there's only so many good markets out there. You know what I mean? So when I find a good market, I kind of want to expose myself to everything that's in demand there. So I would actually say, let's do it all. Now, I'm probably not going to go sub 5. You could play with that, maybe, and you could play around if there's enough demand for it. But I'm probably going to go 5 to 10, 10 to 20, 30 to 40. I'll probably go up to whatever my kind of top end on price is. So for deals that we're bringing to market that we're flipping, I'm typically pursuing stuff that's like no more than $250,000 to $300,000 as a list price. We've got a high concentration of buyers for that bracket. 25K to 300K, somewhere in that territory. It's big enough to fund. There's just a lot of reasons that middle of the market's the place to be. So I'll use that more the deciding factor. In some markets, $250,000, you could be talking about a 150-acre property, So I'll use price more as the guide, less so my kind of bias to size. So really, that's my thinking. I think about it kind of as like the general avatar, the buyer profile and what they want, which is rural recreational here. And then I'll play with everything that's priceable that's within my acreage bracket. Now, let's say that you got to the 20s to 40s, for example, and it totally wasn't priceable. You're like, this is a nightmare. Then I might avoid it. Then I might just say I'm ipsing that. But from a demand perspective, people are going to want, again, 5 to probably 100 acres, I would guess.
Right. And so what I was struggling with is I was, again, breaking it down and trying to really search via Genie because I guess, again, it's pricing up front, do the hard part up front, price it. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe it's too difficult to price because there's not enough data.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and you could be right. You totally could be right. I mean, a lot of these are low supply, like the 20s to 40s, right? It is pretty low supply.
Right.
But we still have almost 15 comps in the last year. So it is lower in the supply. There's still a good amount of comp data. I don't know the quality of that comp data, right? So
Right.
what I would do here is I would export that comp data from Redfin. I would remove the outliers and be like, does this make sense? Can I price off of it? So we really don't know until we get to that step. I think you'll be able to. Again, these are all lower supply, but I think there's, 10 plus comps for most of these. So I think you're safe. This one may be a little trickier, but as we get into bigger properties, because price kind of becomes more linear, we typically need less comp data in general. So I feel it might be hard for me to comp the 5 to 10s with 7 sold in the last year, but the 40s to 60s is probably a pretty good chance that I could. So I think that this has got enough of a green flag for me to export that Redfin data, remove the outliers, and play with pricing. But yeah, you might hit a dead end on some of these brackets.
How many comps? My understanding is that I want to have, how many comps do I want to have to be able to compare it to in a year?
Yeah, so it's tough to say because there's not like a one hard fast rule. It's inversely related to well, one, you could say the geography of the county. How big is the county, right? So like the bigger the county, you probably need more comp data. If you're looking at San Bernardino County, which is like the size of a small state, versus this county, like you're gonna have more variance there theoretically. But really, the inverse relationship that I look at is how homogenous is price. So the more homogenous is, the less comp data I need. So if I'm in a subdivision where everything's unified, I might need like 4 comps and I feel pretty confident. Something like this, where acreage ranges on an entire county, I think a safe rule is about 10. I think that's a pretty safe rule. But you could break that rule, right? There's gonna be times where it's so cookie cutter obvious. If I give you a county in the middle of Oklahoma, most of those counties look identical. It's like just grassland. And so maybe you need less comps there to price out the 40 acres or what have you.
Because everything's the same exact thing.
Everything's the same, right? And so it's really like the first thing that I look at when I look at a county is I just look at it visually. Is this homogeneous? This is pretty homogeneous. We got a big water feature here, some water features over yonder. This looks like it's all forest land back here, but it looks like it's a wildlife management area. So there's probably not a lot of properties for sale. No massive cities. There's going to be some infill stuff over yonder. So I just get like a visual read on like, how visually similar is this county? This is pretty similar. There's some that are, more extreme in terms of being more homogeneous. And then you take a county like San Bernardino, for example, and it's like, you got everything. Big city, big mountains, big bear, things like that. Then you've got desert. My favorite example is San Diego County. That's like one of the hardest counties to price because ocean, cities, mountains, desert. So you've got every kind of variation.
So what's the order when you're starting with the homogeneity or whatever
Yeah,
you started?
yeah.
It's the subdivisions first.
No, so when I look at a market, let's just kind of walk you guys through my process. The first thing I look at it is just a visual read on it. Just visually break it down and I just gut check. Is this homogeneous? Is this not? If it's super wacky, like if I were to look at San Diego County, I probably know off the jump that I'm not going to be able to use an acreage range for the entire county. Now I'll still play around with it, but I'm kind of already starting to get my gears turning on what the market's telling me. The next thing that I do is I like to think about, okay, based off what I'm seeing here visually and playing around with the data, what do I think people what do I think people are buying out here? What do they want out here? So this county, San Diego County, they probably want a lot of different things. Here, you're going to have a ton of infill. You're going to have a lot of rural infill here and then massive rural rec out here. Your county, pretty clear from the data and just visually looking at it, not a big infill market. So probably rural rec and rural infill. Then the next thing is I go through my kind of step-by-step pricing procedure. So the way that I do that is I always start with, can I price this out for an acreage bracket for the entire county? That's the first place I start. So I go and I always typically start at 5 to 10s if it's a more rural info, rural rec market. So let's imagine I'm starting at 5 to 10s here. I just get a quick peek on the Genie. Oh shit, this is a 61 on the Genie. I look at that last minimum sold price and the max sold price. So our minimum price per acre was 2,100 last year, and our maximum was 1.2 million per acre. I'm like, holy crap, this is going to be too difficult. And I might toggle through a couple more and just see 10s to 20s, etc. Now, if this is not making sense to me, my next line of defense typically is going to be zip codes. So, okay, let me populate the zip codes and I'll start kind of going through and playing with that. If that's impossible, the next I'm going to have a fork in the road. The fork in the road is going to be, is this going to be a market that has a lot of subdivisions? Because if yes, I'm probably just going to roll with the subdivisions. If no, maybe I have to use a polygon. So if I was working here, I say, well, is there a logical way that I could divide this up? Well, maybe. Maybe I could fracture the city here on the west side. I could go fracture the mountains, and I could go split up the deserts. That's like advanced though. Like in a lot of cases in the beginning of your journey, it's easier to wave the white flag and just forfeit on those really hard markets. And so I'll show you like an example of where subdivisions might come into play, where it makes more sense to go that route than it does polygons. So Colorado, classic subdivision state, right? And there's some states that just lend better to subdivisions, or some states and counties. Most of the Southwest, Southeast is where you're going to find most of your subdivisions. But of course, it varies. So what did I do here? What did I do wrong? Hold on, let me refresh this. I did something wrong. Let's try this over again. Oh, yeah, that's right. I had it on the zip code function. Okay. So we'll look at Teller County, right? And if I go to Teller County, it's just say, okay, look at the 5 to 10s to start. 32 on the Genie. I don't necessarily love that. And I look at it here, and there is some variation. So these are huge mountain range here, right? Then it drops off more kind of pastoral back here, a little more pastoral back here. You've got some stuff that's in proximity to like decent sized towns, so that might shift it. I don't really see an easy way for me to break this up by polygons. It's just too variable. But if I start playing around with this and I just start zooming in, I'll start noticing, boy, it really looks like there's a lot of subdivisions out here. Like you can just see these little tight groupings. And so I'd go over to the data platform and I say, okay, let's just see, are there a lot of subdivisions out here? So to go Teller County, Colorado. And then I just click this subdivision drop down. Whoops. And then I just start kind of going through this list, right? And I see, okay, wow, there's a lot that pop up here. I could start clicking on these and playing around with them. And even if I like look here on Land Insights, let me remove this topography layer for you guys. It's a little noisy. Let me remove this. So you can see these like these comp clusters. You guys can see how these comps are kind of clustering. I'm like, why is there so many comps clustering here? Oh, damn, that's a huge subdivision. And if I click on one of these properties, I can actually go and figure out what subdivision it is. Oh, this is Cripple Creek Mountain Estates. Cool. Maybe I search by that. Maybe that's how I'm going to fracture this up. Same thing here. God, there's a lot of these little tight pockets. So I go acreage range. If that doesn't work, I go zip codes. And then if that doesn't work, I kind of have a fork in the road. Can I do this polygons or should I go subdivision? In some cases, you should just do nothing. It's like, all right, I'm on to the next. So for your county, Ontario, I think you're fine to try it via acreage range, but go pull that data from Redfin and play around with it. I won't do that. I won't do that on every market. It's got to pass my sniff test. That passes my sniff test. Like that's got a green light to proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very,
I threw a lot your
I
way.
appreciate
Yeah, is that helpful?
No, I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, of course. All right. And then you got another question here. Can you direct me good calls on when to use a double close and maybe give a very high level here? Also, in the double close model, you are telling the seller that you will go to your network and help them find a buyer. What's the talk track here for reasons you would offer double close? Because one guy asked me the difference between me and a realtor. For sure. Yeah. Um, I mentioned this, I think, on the call last week. So we're going through and running all of our calls through AI and building out timestamps and summaries. So it'll all be indexable. If you want, you can drop Juan a message. He can point you to the direction for the double
Perfect.
calls we have.
Awesome.
There's a lot where I'm
Thank
kind
you.
of through role playing it, but let's talk about it here. I want to make sure you're in a good spot. So, yeah. So
The guy's like, what's the difference between you and a realtor if you're just gonna
for
find
sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So let's start with first off, like when we pitch it, right? When I go to a seller on my second call, my offer call, I'm going to give them a range. I never just come in and give them one offer. So I'm going to give them a range to start. They're always going to say, why is there a delta? Like, why is there a difference between your range here? I'm like, well, on this side of the spectrum, we've got our quick close option. Based off what you told me, it sounds like you need to get this done in 45 days or less. So probably what makes sense for you that I go through our value stack. Here we cover everything, et cetera, et cetera. On the other side of the spectrum, if we have a little more time to play with, we can typically offer more for two reasons. One, we're going to be able to mitigate risk because we've got more time to work the deal, get boots on the ground, work it from all angles, kind of cross our T's, dot our I's in our due diligence. The second thing is, we buy and sell land all across the US. So we've built up a network of buyers that we can lean on and potentially play matchmaker for this property here. Now, sometimes that means just working our internal list. And in some cases, that means actually bringing it to market. And then I just shut up. So, okay, well, how much time would you need, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the difference between a realtor and us, it really comes down to one phrase. And I use this, or my team uses this in offer calls all the time. And this is part of the reason that sellers work with us. I say the difference between us and a realtor is that a bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. What I'm giving you is certainty. You bring it to a realtor, you don't know when it's going to sell, you don't know how much it's going to sell for. You know when this is going to sell, you know the price. The other thing is the price listed here is the price that you net. You get a $50,000 offer from a buyer with a realtor. Realtor takes 10 points. You've got $2,000 in closing costs from the realtor or from the title company. Your buyer wants you to perform a perk test and a survey. That's another $5,000 out of pocket. So it's kind of a fugazi. It looks like a good number, but often sellers don't net that number. Then what happens when the seller gets you or the buyer gets you to the closing table? You've outlaid that money for the perk test and for the survey, and then they back out. Oh, our financing fell through, or turns out we're choosing another property. We don't do that, right? Now, in return for the ease of use and liquidity that we provide, we do make an offer that's not at market value, of course. So that's kind of the talk track and the framing there. I let them ask me about it. I don't like lead with it, and I never try to push someone to a double close. I love giving optionality, and they can raise their hand for what makes sense for them. And that's the difference between us and a realtor. Questions on that? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I just trying to understand the philosophy. I get it. Now I got it.
The
And
big,
I'll listen to it again. Thank you.
yeah. The biggest thing with double closes, it honestly matters so little what we say. It matters, have we selected the right person that we should advocate a double close for them? As in, we know the three whys. Why do they want to, why haven't they sold before? Why sell now? Why not use a realtor, et cetera? And so if it matches up with their timelines, what they're looking to do, it's worth exploring it deeper with them. So the selection of the right person. And then the second one is just stupid obvious, but it's just purely confidence. And with that confidence, there's a trust in you. And so I think a lot of sellers don't elect for a double close, not because it doesn't serve them. Oftentimes it's actually a better option for them. They just don't want to partner with you for 3 months because they don't really trust you or know you or they just don't understand it. So I would say that the honest truth is somewhere between like 40 and 50% of all of our double closes, we're not even using that talk track. We're using a straight up tell you everything talk track, like wildly honest, like everything. And the difference is I've got one acquisition manager that never wants a double close to blow up in his face. So he just gives them all the information, like everything. And then we've got one acquisition manager that's a little, I guess, shiftier with it, a little less direct. Both work. The truth is, though, for the first guy, I don't think he's ever had a double close that hasn't panned out. So that's worth something. And we get crazy terms in our double closes. We just made 100 grand on a double close where the seller gave us 9 months to control their $300,000 property with $500 of earnest money. You only get that through confidence. You know what I mean? So I trust this guy or girl, whoever it may be. And someone that embodies this really well is Mike V. Mike, you could chime in. Mike, that your head is looking shiny today too. I don't know if you just recently got a haircut or what. It's looking good.
Busted, man. I'm going bald, dude. 47 is wonderful.
No, it looks good. But I feel like you're
Double
wrapped.
close. I use your line a lot. I use, sorry to interrupt you. I use everything that pretty much you said that your team uses,
Yeah.
except with my own. I put my own twist on it, pretty much.
Yeah. And that twist is something on the vein of if we make in excess of this price, are you going to have a problem with it roughly?
Yeah, that every now and again I'll throw that in there. Yes, and I jump in I use your line a lot. Bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. And what I also use is what you mentioned a moment ago is the uncertainty of a realtor is buyer comes in. Another thing a lot of people have to realize is, and this is the truth in Sumner, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I built my house in 2019. When I got a land loan, the bank banged me over the head for 30% down and 10% interest, right? So banks are not keen on lending for land. And I tell this to my sellers, like, hey, it's great, you can list it with the realtor. You get a buyer 6-7 months down the road. What happens when they come through and the bank financing falls through, right? Because a bank wants collateral, and that's the truth. They don't want to be stuck with a piece of land if someone defaults on that payment, right? They'd rather have a 3,000 square foot, $500,000 home that they can come and collect on, right? And seize if you default. So those are little lines you throw in there, and it makes your seller, again, educated, rational sellers, it makes them think. And you'd be surprised. All those little nuggets you put in their head, they absorb it. They're listening.
Yep. Yep. No, 100%. Yeah, you can lean on the fact that in this economy, most buyers need leverage. So bank financing, or they're going to ask for owner financing terms. The other thing too, which I forgot to mention, is in our proposition, the seller doesn't lift a finger. You sign a contract. If they go the realtor route, they've got to find a realtor, vet a realtor, make sure it's the right one. And a lot of times they don't really want to do that. And so you can ask, like, well, do you know a realtor that would list this for you? Are you going to list it yourself? And the answer is almost always no. Mike, you got something else to add?
Yeah, one more thing is if you have the correct verbiage in your double close purchase and sale agreement, I think everyone focuses on you'll allow us to market on the MLS. But if you really read the fine print, it says buyer has the right to market on any and all platforms. So what I tell my seller is, hey, I'm involved, and I'm involved with a group of 50 other land investors across the country. I have access to sites you don't for pocket buyers, right? So the sites that I have access to, you don't. So I can bring in buyers that you won't find and your realtors won't find. Lines like that, I'm telling you, it solidifies it a lot of the times.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, 100%. And the truth is, like, the take rate on double closes is really high because typically it's a great option for the sellers. I would say a quarter of our sellers, a third of our sellers have like crazy urgency. The house is burning down. I need to extinguish this fire right now. But most of them, they've got a couple months, and if they can make more on it, it's a sweet deal for them. The other thing, Cheryl, that I forgot to mention, we also pay them a non-refundable earnest money deposit up front. So as a sign of good faith and cash in your pocket, I'm sending you $500 now or whatever the math is.
Yeah, so and you're doing 500.
500,
and then you're doing a 30-day close.
No, yeah.
Or a 45-day.
Longer. So it's negotiable. Typically, we start at 120 on every deal. If it's a weird deal, we'll start there. I'll ask for 6 months. The lowest I go is 90. Because what happens is land is weird. You know what I mean? Like, you could be in the hottest market ever and your deal still takes 3 months to sell. I just can't predict this stuff. And then what happens when I have a buyer that comes to me and they've got 30 days to close? It's like, shit, I'm SOL. It really doesn't give us enough margin for error. So 90 is the lowest I go. I start at 500 to Earnest. It's very rare that we go beyond that. I either send that to escrow or I just Zelle it or wire it to them right then and there once they sign. In some
But it's
cases,
a 120 day. I thought you were doing a 30-day close. And I'm like, I don't, how the hell are they doing a 30-day close?
yeah,
No, so 120. Okay, that makes
120. That's what we start at. We can play with it. That's what we start at. Most of ours are at 120. We'll go up, you know what I mean? Like we'll go up to $1,000 if the deal warrants it. We're doing a double close, hasn't been signed yet. It should be signed. If you guys want to see a testament to what this stuff looks like, we've been working this lead for 2 years. I've even been on multiple Zoom calls with them. Like we've worked this lead to the bone. It's a double close buy for 1.5 million. Our realtor, one of our best realtors, says it's worth 2 million. You guys want to know how much we're controlling that property for? Oh, sure. Looks like, yeah.
500. 500.
A little more than 500. $5,000. But here's the kicker. Okay, it's $5,000. They're giving us 6 months on the contract. But the cool thing is that $5,000 is fully refundable within 14 or 15 days. So I can go test the market of the 2 mil. If it doesn't make sense and it's going to be compressed, we can just back out and get our money out. This stuff is so negotiable. But my thinking is $500,000 of potential spread for $5,000. I'm taking that gamble every time, and it's in a market where there's no properties of this size available. So I think it's going to go. And our realtor allegedly has multiple pocket buyers. So there's times to go beyond it, but it's rare. Yeah. Okay, cool. Hopefully it was a helpful break.
Great answers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you.
Christian Avila, are you on the call? I don't know if Christian is. Christian, for some reason, the APN you sent me is not going through. Christian, if you're here, let me know. I don't see him here. Hopefully he jumps on. If anyone sees him when he jumps on, please let me know so we can collect an updated APN or coordinates. One thing, guys, I always recommend add in your coordinates as a fail-safe. It just makes it a lot easier in case sometimes the APNs are funky. So if he hops on, Christian, we'll go through this together. Okay, Mr. Bushy, Alex, please make sure to fill. Okay, that's the template. Deal in Minnesota, Crow Wing County. Dude, this is a first. I don't see an APN on this one.
No, this is just I'm trying to look at a zip code in Baxter, which is in Crow. There is I'm kind of trying to target the zip code subdivision, and there's a couple subdivisions in Baxter. Actually, the link I sent you, that Redfin link, should take you right to it, I hope.
Okay. So in the future, so this is for the individual deal reviews. You can just pop it in the market reviews down here. And then what I recommend, state, county, if it's a zip code, put in the zip code, and then just general stats. So, hey, this zip code's got, okay, first off, what are you targeting, right? So you're like, hey, I'm doing the 50s to 100s. Okay, we know that. There's 30 properties available, one month STR, 3 month, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of just a quick health report on it. I'm going to pull it up inside Land Insights here, but just for the future, you can break that down. And then this is for individual deals, which hopefully we'll be using this template here together sooner rather than later. We can start looking at some deals. Maybe it'll come from Baxter County. Who knows? While I get this pulled up, I know you're going to give me a little pulse on it. So while I get this pulled up, let me know anything pertinent I need to know.
Yeah, so this is my first time looking into Minnesota. I spent a lot of time in the Carolinas, which obviously didn't have a whole lot of luck.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of mail there. But so I was just trying to get outside of the box maybe a little bit. The reason I chose this, I went through basically all the counties in Minnesota and just kind of picked the ones that were somewhat close to a city. And then this one popped out just because I zoomed in and saw these two subdivisions that had a lot of homogeneous pricing. So I just wanted to zoom in.
Okay. Walk me through. You said somewhat close to a city. What were you looking at with that?
So what I've been doing is I believe you said anywhere, I know it's kind of a range, but anywhere from maybe a population 40,000 and then above. This one though, and this was actually one of my questions below, was I was wondering kind of what the exception would be on that, because there really isn't anything super close to this county that I saw as far as a big city or anything. So I just kind of chose this a little bit at random just because I happened to be in the county and saw these two subdivisions. So I was wondering if this would be worth mailing, even though it's not close to the city.
Yeah, good question. So I think the truth is like the ultimate trump card is just what are the stats for the zip code or for the county or the subdivisions or whatever. As in, okay, how much active, how much pending, going through the STRs, and then is it priceable? That trumps anything else. Yeah, is it, it is nice when we have a town or a city that's a few hours away that we can pull buyers from. But there are oddities out there where it's like the middle of nowhere. Like it's like the closest town city is like 6 hours away or like a day away in terms of a drive. But if the data is telling us for whatever reason people are gobbling up land out here, that's the ultimate trump card. So that's going to reign supreme over anything else. So looking at first off, we'll look at this county just top down. Is there a strategy of picking out good zip codes and bad counties? Yes, but I prefer to stack the cards in my favor. I want to be in a good county to start with. Um, this county is okay. It's pretty high on the active, so 279. I try to say between 25 and 250 active, and the STR is at 95%. So could there be good zip codes in here? Yes, but I think from the top down level, the county's just okay. What was the actual zip code you were looking at? Do you remember
Yeah,
the name?
actually, you want the
Yeah, because I don't see. You said Baxter
five 56425 is the zip code.
56425. Uh, why am I not seeing that?
And I was hoping that Redfin link would take you right to the subdivisions, but it doesn't. I mean, there are groupings like a subdivision, but it doesn't list the subdivision name. It just says Baxter. So I
Okay.
couldn't get you more than just that, but
Okay.
yeah,
56425, you said? Here we go.
yeah.
All right. I don't know why I missed that. Okay. We can pull up the Redfin link. Going at just before we go look at that, top down, you got a 78% STR in the last year. That's under what we want. There's definitely reasons to break those rules, so it's not gospel, it's not perfect, but it's just okay. Like typically 100% is kind of the baseline of what we're shooting for over a 1 year period. Um, so I'm kind of iffy off the rip. And if we just remove this,
Oh, I actually showed 100 on my end for a year and like 45 for 6 months.
so yeah, the reason being is inside of Land Insights, we remove all of the off-market comps. So like looking at this in the last year, you've got 22 sales. That number inside of Land Insights might be reflected as 17 or something like that because there might be off-market sales that oftentimes get pulled into Redfin that were at the county level, never made it to market. So those are it's just noise, you know what I mean? So like something like this, it's actually listed. We will go through and review. It looks like the number is 49. But you look at this right here, this is an off-market sale. Oh, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. These aren't good examples. But anyways, that's why you're going to see the numbers reflected differently inside of Land Insights. So that's the discrepancy there. Off markets, yeah, like they mean something, but it's kind of noisy. You know what I mean? Here's like a classic off market here. Could have been two neighbors selling to each other, could have been an interfamily sale. The price doesn't really make sense, so we just remove them. Um, the other thing, like, and this is why I love just kind of peeling through the comp data and playing around with it. Um, wait, where did that go? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, 8, 9, 10, 20% of our sales happen from one weird subdivision that someone made. It looks like this was recently subdivided. So I don't love that. That's a little worrying. That's a lot of our data. That's going to be potentially misleading on pricing because it's so clustered in what this one developer did. Um, So yeah, I don't know. This is a tricky one. I don't know if this has got me jumping up and down. I think it's okay, and it certainly could be workable. I think that there's got to be a trade-off though. So it's kind of like the scale's got to be tipped. So if like, okay, the demand is okay here, it's not booming. What am I getting in return for that? And when I look at the pricing, it might be a little challenging, you know, like if I go, um, wait,
Yeah,
this is
the,
not, sorry. I don't know why this zip code is not showing up. 56425. I click on that. Okay. I don't know. I'm doing something wrong. But let's just go look at the pricing real quick. So 41 for the point 0.2 to 100. What size range were you looking at?
uh, well, the two subdivisions I was looking at, it looks like it's anywhere from a quarter acre up to an acre. So I was thinking maybe I could get away with, I know it's going to be, I would want to mail bigger parcels if I can, but I was thinking maybe like anywhere from like 3 to 5 acres, something like that. It's a little bit of a small
Okay.
band.
So to clarify, are you looking at the zip code or are you looking at subdivisions within the county?
I started in the it's within the zip code. I just don't have a subdivision name, so I can't get any more zoomed in to explain to you where they are. That's why I used that Redfin link. That should have taken. I drew a line around where those two subdivisions were in that link that I sent you, and I was hoping to take you right to those. Yeah, so it's actually one. Yeah, those on either side.
Got it.
They're-
So, and was there a reason like just the rest of the zip code didn't look good as to why we pinpointed those?
No, I just started here, so there's no reason like if it was homogenous throughout the county, there's no reason why I wouldn't choose that. I just saw these groupings and kind of wanted to just start there and see if I could get really zoomed in on those because that's kind of what I was focusing on was just the zip code
Okay.
or subdivision kind of deal. So I on Redfin that caught my eye. Those groupings of pricing caught my eye. So that's why I went in.
Okay. Okay. Um, we'll talk about the subdivisions here in a second. Um, this county doesn't, or sorry, the zip code doesn't really have anything past 5 acres, so it is kind of all infill-esque, which might mean that we have to break it down by subdivisions. Um, if we look at like the 1s to 3s, let's see.
And I drew a polygon around those two subdivisions. I'm probably pulling like 60 records
Okay.
after it's like 100 or because I'm going through and like hand selecting these things, but that's what I have.
Okay. Yeah, so
Uh,
pretty much all the activity here is under an acre. But the genie is only at 25. So I think that you could price out this entire zip code. I don't really see any reason against it. Now you wouldn't be able to do 9,500 square feet to 1 acre. We'd have to fracture it even tighter. So it'd be like, a tenth of an acre to a quarter acre to 0.4. Like you're probably gonna have to break it down a little cleaner because there is going to be variability from a 1 acre to 10,000 square feet. But if it's already at a 25 on the genie for the zip code, I don't see any reason that we have to break this down by zip codes, or sorry, by subdivisions rather. And so again, we kind of what we walked through earlier on this call with Cheryl. It's kind of like a stair-stepping pattern. So I'm like, okay, can I start with the county? Okay, if that doesn't work, can I start with zip codes? If that doesn't work, can I start with subdivisions? But I see that the zip code would work. Now, if we look at it from a county perspective, let's just go see what that tells us. So 5 to 10, you're at a 32 on the genie. That's okay. It's not great. 10 to 20s, you're at a 22, 20s to 40s, 44. Yeah, it's okay. And if you break it down by zip codes, it's probably going to get a good bit cleaner. So I think it is priceable via the zip code. It seems like it's probably a little tricky on the county. So I think you did the right thing by moving to the next step. I think county is doable, but hard. This thing here, again, this is super inside baseball, but the reason that these aren't pulling up any subdivision name is they're not necessarily real subdivisions. And what I mean by that, someone like you and I went in here, like an investor, and they just chopped these things up. So this is like an investor that just pulled off a quick, easy subdivision. These aren't really workable because one, it's not like a real subdivision per se. It would be like going and buying imagine if I chopped up a 100-acre lot to 10 acre lots in Texas, and I did that 6 months ago, and then you wanted to come and buy those. One, it's not going to be a real subdivision. I just kind of used a loophole to chop them up. When you go and look at like a 1,000-unit subdivision, like in Teller County, like we're looking at before, that have a real POA, have a real HOA, then that's really what we're thinking about when we talk about like subdivisions in the traditional term. But there's one big problem as to why we couldn't work this. Do you know, does anyone want to take a guess why this wouldn't be possible to market to? Any guesses, guys? Anyone? Who wants to be fearless? Take a shot. It's okay. We could be wrong. Any reasons why we couldn't work this?
I guess I'm a little stumped. I know the one reason, like, why you're saying it may not be, you may not be able to use those for, you were saying you can't use those for comps, right? Like to get an idea of what the pricing would be.
Well,
What is breaking out?
they are potentially, they can be used as comps globally, like for an entire zip code, what have you. I could become a little bit weary because it's so concentrated from an investor. So investors are trying to move inventory quick. They're selling at a discount. It's like I like comps from land investors, but I really like comps from the retail market. You know what I mean? That just carries more weight for me. But again, there's one reason as to why we couldn't do this. Everyone that owns land in this subdivision bought it 2 months ago, 3 months ago, because the subdivider, the land developer, the investor just chopped this up. So this sold December 20th, this sold December 20th, February 27th, December 20th, December 20th, etc. So all of the ownership data, not even all the comps, but all of the ownership data is coming from owners that just bought a few months ago. So they're not going to be likely to sell. So could we use it for comps globally? Yes, but we wouldn't want to market to it, because why would they want to sell if they just bought this a few months ago? You know what I mean? So if you came in here and you used remove owners that have owned it for under 5 years, all of our data would be gone for this. Now, this subdivision is very different from whatever this subdivision is. Now, this does look like a legitimate subdivision that someone made. This is probably more akin to what we would go after. Most of it looks developed, so I don't know how much raw land there actually is here. Probably not much. But this would be like a little more in the same vein, and these are going to be very different than these lots. For example, this is a real subdivision. And one of the ways that we can quickly tell, you could go into your data provider and look at it. But usually they'll have the subdivision name listed somewhere in here. I don't see it here. But the subdivisions, we can't really cross-reference a different subdivision for our subdivision. So let's say, for example, this was like a subdivider like us, and they just chopped this up. Let's say this one has a true HOA and POA. And with that, you get a boat ramp for the Mississippi River. You get access to a pool. You get access to a gym that's on site, because it's a real established HOA or POA, like a real subdivision. The prices could be so different because you're getting totally different things. So if I'm pulling a subdivision like this one here, just as an example, I couldn't use these comps for a subdivision over here because every subdivision is different. It's almost like pulling comps from a different county and trying to apply them to the county I'm working in. It's just too different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, basically like most of my comps are my mailing record. Like I'm going to be mailing those people that.
Actually, all of it, all of your comps are also all of the ownership data, unless you're using these comps to price out other subdivisions, which I don't think we should do. So like maybe this is a legit subdivision here, right? But it doesn't really look like it's a good one, because there's only one real sale within the subdivision, which is that $22,000 one. This one here is, I don't know, this doesn't look like it's part of it. It looks like it's close to it, but not part of it. It's too big of a property. So you're kind of in a holding pattern. So I don't look at this necessarily as a market where I think pulling subdivisions is going to make sense. Now, the good news is I think it is priceable on a zip code basis, but then we have to ask ourselves, is this hypothetically the best market I could pick in Minnesota? Well, we have to make an argument for that. I don't know if it is. If we look at the zip code, it's ripping, 175% STRs. And then for your size bracket, 1 to 9,500 square feet, it's at 120,000. It's good. That the 127,000, 127, geez, is good, but it's not amazing. So I need to be getting something in return for that. Like, it's really easy to price. My fear is it doesn't really look like a super easy to price market. So like, again, like let's just, for the sake of giving an example, I just want to go through one with you. And it's a very easy example to use. Actually, you know what? I always use Teller County. I'm going to pull something different. And I'll kind of show you where the subdivision concept is going to make a little more sense. And then also how to validate that, yeah, hey, this is a real subdivision. So let's go Los Animas County, Colorado. We'll change it up. We go to Los Animas County. What are you using for your data platform?
Data.
Data tree? Okay, cool. So two things that we can do to validate. So inside data tree, you don't have this drop down menu where it's going to pre-populate all of them for you. So you can search by it, but you have to know the name. So how can we figure out the name? I'll show you a couple options that we have. So looking at this here, I mean, there's not any glaring clusters, but there's some clusters. Let's look back here. Like there's a good amount of random sales over here. So I look at this and I'm like, okay, this is chopped up in a pretty uniform fashion and there are sales. Do you guys think that this is going to be a subdivision? I think so. I think there's a good chance. The way I validate that, one, you can look on Redfin, right? And if it's a true, it's harder on Zillow, but if it's a true subdivision, you're going to see it listed somewhere in the heart of Picket Wire Ranch. Okay, bam, that's got to be a subdivision. Or it'll show it somewhere in the stats, somewhere you're going to see it. Now, Redfin has a better subdivision tab. It'll literally tell you Redfin's not as good. But the ultimate source of truth is if we just go take one of these, if I look at the legal description, the legal description should always tell me. And you can do this in data tree. You have to pay $1. So it's stupid. They charge you $1 to see this information, but you pay the $1, you get the property detail report. And in there, you can see the abbreviated legal description. You see how this legal description says Picket Wire Ranch? The legal description is only going to ever show that if it is a subdivision. Infinity Acres Ranch or, whatever. Like it's going to be obvious. Otherwise, it's going to be like 44 degrees north, 75 degrees south. You like that classic legal description. If it's got a name in it like that, really good chance it's a subdivision. Now, if you have Land Insights, you can go and validate the actual subdivision name. But what you can do inside data trees, now we know, okay, Picket Wire Ranch. So I'm just going to go and search that. And I'm like, will anything show up? So if I come in and go Picket Wire, okay, cool, bam, Picket Wire Ranch. Now I click on this. Okay, so cool, that's the subdivision. So I got 92 properties in the subdivision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it's got to like every step of the way, it's got to be validating that this is a legit subdivision. And then you can see here, yes, there are comps, but not all of the ownership data has just sold. That's a run for the hills situation. But and I can continue down this path, right? You can just keep on sniping this. Well, shit, what's this over here? This looks like a subdivision. Let's click on this. This is Fisher Peak Ranch. Okay, cool. And then I can just come over here and just search it. Bada bing, bada boom. Here's what I'm going to recommend.
I'm against just calling. Do you carry shadow systems pistols?
So, dude, let's start with this. Go to Los Animas County. Just pull a couple subdivisions here. It's not going to be a lot of data, right? Fisher Peak Ranch, 110. The other one was 62. I want just go pull whatever, a couple hundred records. That might be a half dozen, a dozen subdivisions, and get your feet wet that way. Just start really, really simple, where there's clearly are subdivisions, saying yes, there are subdivisions here, and just start with that. And again, most counties that have subdivisions in them usually have adjacent counties that also have subdivisions in them. So you can just keep on extending this thinking. Most counties that don't have subdivisions won't be around counties that do have subdivisions, if that makes sense. So like that one that we just looked at, not really a hot to trot subdivision market. The other thing is that those subdivisions don't even really have the inventory that you necessarily want to be buying. Do we buy quarter acres? Yes. Is it what we want to be buying or marketing to? No. Really, our whole strategy doesn't say that we can't buy infill lots, but it says that we typically want to put a preference on rural recreational and rural infill. So call it like half acre, 1 acre on the lowest, up to whatever, 1,000 acres, 2,000 acres. The reason that we love this little strategy of ours is because no matter what's going on in the world, people want to buy these properties. It does blip. Sometimes it's lower, sometimes it's higher. But like for you guys, if the world turned to shit, the economy nosedives, do you think that there's more buyers for a rural 40 acre in Colorado with access to utilities or a tenth of an acre lot in Minnesota? For sure, the bigger property, right? And prices might even be somewhat similar. Those infill lots are so sensitive. When the world gets weird, no one's thinking about building a third home. And when times are good, for sure, but it's very rare. And typically, those purchases require lending. They're usually going to wrap up a construction loan for the purchase of the property and the building of the home, where this people are going to pay for cash typically. So it's just a very different pool of buyers that we work with. And the reason I feel so strongly about this is I got absolutely humbled in 2022. Interest rates like doubled overnight or something ridiculous like that. All the liquidity for my small properties gone. Bigger stuff still selling, small stuff not selling. And I was like, okay, I've got to be very careful. I don't want to get caught in a business that's so sensitive to the economy. Will I buy those deals? Yeah. Like we do get sellers that sell us quarter acres. I'd be lying if I said I don't buy a few a year, but I don't pursue them deliberately. If that makes sense. Yeah. Is that helpful?
Yeah, yeah. I'll go to Los Angeles County and just practice. That makes total sense.
Yeah. I'll put it in the chat for you. Just it's Los Animas,
Oh,
Colorado.
and
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. And yeah, man, keep on playing with this, right? And again, think about it from the breakdown of, can I start with the county? Okay, no. Can I start with zip codes? Okay, no. Can I start with subdivisions? Again, let's just keep polygons out of the conversation for now. When you look at a Los Animas County, it's a pretty crazy county. Like there's a lot of mountainous areas, there's big valleys, there's whatever this like farming area is back here. It's just too variable for acreage ranges countywide. So, usually the market kind of whispers to you how it wants to be broken down. So yeah, man, play around with this. There's a lot of counties all over the Southwest that have boatloads of subdivisions. And the easiest thing to do if you don't have land insights is literally go on Redfin and just looking for the clusters. Looking for the clusters of pricing where there's all these comps. Usually there's a subdivision, but ensure it's a real subdivision and ensure that not all the comps are also all of your ownership data. Boom. Helpful, man.
Yes, yeah, it is.
Any more questions?
No,
All
I
right.
think that. Yeah.
Good luck on that. Bring them to a Wednesday call or next call or what have you. The good news is those markets or those zip codes, sorry, those subdivisions, super easy to price. And so that's really like when we listen to how a market wants to be broken down, pricing should be a cinch. It becomes really hard when we're trying to force the matter. But this should be super easy. We can review the pricing once you have it, but you should be in a really good spot. All right. Good stuff, man. Okay, Mike V, 31 acres, South Carolina, Lawrence County.
I rushed to get this one in tonight. I didn't have a chance. This thing is way on the east side of Lawrence. It's kind of what does your AL have a comp at? 250? Am I seeing that right?
Yeah, let's see.
Yeah, so I had this thing comped at 259 according to my spreadsheet. Mailed it at 158. There's not much during this call. I was looking around. There's really not much that's within proximity and similarity at all.
Okay. Let's play around with it. First thing is let's see.
There's 2 access points from the road, which is nice. You'll see Leisure Drive,
Yeah.
and then you'll see Highway 72. So you can get in from 2 spots.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking, what if you could subdivide this, right? You could parcel it out from here, chop it, or we could do a flagpole from here.
I thought about that, but Sumner, see that brook running through there?
Yep.
If you drop the contour lines, there's a pretty steep dip there. I wanted your opinion on that.
Okay. Let's see. 459, 492. Yes. Yeah. I mean, dude, that's going to be a problem no matter what, though, right? I almost think because of this, it might be more wise to parcel it out here. So you've got a really vanilla, easy lot. get your basis out of this. This might take a little bit longer. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but
No, I thought the same thing. I thought the same exact thing was split it right down the middle because of the double access.
yeah,
It's just right there. See, a homestead can obviously go right on that front edge,
right.
and then if somebody wants to hunt the rest of that property, the other 15 some odd acres, then yeah, you can go hunt in the back there.
Yeah, so it brings up a good point, dude. This is kind of how I would think about it. So, like, let's say we did parcel this out. Um, let's go like this, just for the sake of a visual breakdown. Let's say come on. So we parcel it out like this. Okay, so we split it like that. You've got this chunk here, whatever, it's 15 acres or something like that. What do we think someone's going to use this 15 acre for?
Rec, rural rec, or maybe, like I said, maybe put a homestead on there out in the country and
Yeah.
hunt on it.
So I agree. I think that's exactly what someone's going to do with it. So if someone's going to build, ain't no way they're building back here. Utilities here, they're always going to build within close proximity to the road. So it's like, okay, we kind of have that box checked, right? Because you've got enough depth here to where someone can build a home. 329 feet. I think they're in a good spot. Alternatively, if someone wants to hunt on it, they ain't going to need to drive their car back here. They're going to walk it, ATV, whatever. So I think that this could be a non-issue here because you've got enough space to where they can do what they want for either use case. So I'm kind of the mindset that a split would make sense.
Right.
I could be wrong, but that's my feeling. So let's go and underwrite it. Okay. So yeah, everything's pretty far away. This is 31 acres. And you said you thought it was worth 240?
No, my estimates on my spreadsheet were 259 is where I had this
Okay.
market value.
259. All right, let's play with this. Times 31. Okay, so you're like at 8,000 and some change per acre. This is a nice freaking property. It's got some serious improvements. And this traded at 8K an acre. That's interesting. This is at 299 for a 33 that's pending. Maybe a development grade property given the location. So that might explain the high price. That's super high too. Like some of these are really high. They're far away though, 23 miles. So this has got interstate proximity. Yeah, I might even make a case. Again, the comps are so limited here. I might even make a case that we're not going to get even 250. I think we might be a little lower. Not by a lot, but I think you're probably close to 8K an acre considering what this closest comp traded for. I would have to look at it a little bit deeper. Maybe it's not that nice of a property, but something to think about. So here's a 23 acre that sold at 150. Is that right? Or is it a 15? I think it's 2 APNs. Is there a driveway or access or anything like that?
No.
Okay. So I mean, check this out, right? This is 150. It's got pretty nice improvements in the sense it's very easy to access. It's got a little creek on it. This traded at 6,200 an acre. Do we think we're far, and substantially nicer than that? I don't know, man.
No.
So kind of tricky. 6,200, 31, 192. Yeah, I don't think you're at 192, but I think you might be in the low 200s. So if we were to split this, let's take this thing down to like 15, 12, something like that. Okay. Why did this sold at 22,000 an acre? That seems really high. It's got a structure on it. These are crazy high. This is pending. 202. Okay, nice pastoral property. Still sold at 202. That's crazy. Public water, septic is required. Okay. And then here's this guy. This doesn't look all that nice. This sold at 269. Dude, I would play with this, but it seems like there's a huge increase for just getting it down into like the 15 acre range.
I have it out to my realtor for CMAs, And he said the exact same thing to me. He didn't even look at it. He's like, "Hey, is it a subdivide play?" And I said, "I don't know. You'd be the judge of that." I said, "I think it may be." So I'm thinking 220 without a subdivide. So what does that put that? 220 divided by 31.7, 6,900 an acre max.
Yep.
And then possibly, like you said, maybe bring them down to tens. The only thing I'm noticing is there's a high days on market. A lot of these I'm noticing. On the one you just pulled, I think it was 270 some odd days.
Yeah, let's see. Listed 710. No, that's okay. That one was 5 days. Let's see this one. 830. So yeah, that one's 8 months. But again, they sold this thing so high, dude. 269 for this property. I can't believe someone paid this much. This is not a monumental property. I mean, look at this thing. That is not a special property. I don't know that I think they way overpriced it. But yeah, dude, I think that a lot split here is a layup. I mean, at the least, I think you're picking up 9K an acre as a lot split. And it could be 12, 13K an acre based off the comps.
Right. But definitely not 250, 260.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're probably in like the mid sevens per acre, low sevens, maybe high sixes as is.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Cool. Perfect. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And look, there are some markets out there that just have a crazy premium for subdivides. And this seems to be one of them. Again, I would spot check a bit more, but those do exist. There's also many markets out there where margins compressed. Texas is a good example. You're not getting much of a premium for chopping up into 10 acres nowadays. So there's some markets that really play well to it. So it's actually a feature that we've been workshopping in Land Insights for a long time. We're probably going to be building out a special suite of tools just for developers, subdividers, and titlers inside of Land Insights. And one of those things is a delta scrub. So being able to pull markets that have the highest delta for subdivides in the US, which is pretty badass. All right. Charity, are you on the call?
Hey, yeah, I'm on the call. I had a very hard time trying to comp this. So, um,
I love it. Give me the hard stuff. Makes it fun.
yeah, so it's a Larry Malone, his wife I'm working with. She wants to sell 7 properties out of the 8 that's listed there. So the only one that she's not interested in is the one on the far right, where it looks like it's structure on. Yep, yeah. So not that one, but the other ones that says Larry on there, she's interested in.
Okay.
I think it's about 72.82 acres, very, very sloped area, as you can see. There are some spots in there like that people may be able to build a home on, but I'm thinking mostly recreational. I do see like some of the neighbors, they do have structures on them. But yeah, I don't know, as I'm looking at the comps in the area, I struggle with trying to identify.
Yeah.
You know.
We're definitely gonna have to sell these all is. I'd love to parcel them out, but just given the access, they're all gonna kind of require them to be bundled. So we're gonna be selling a package for 76 acres. What was your offer to the seller?
Ooh, but so it was one of those where I reached out to her for the 2 acres, apparently, and then she says she wants to sell all of them. So I don't really have an actual offer for all 7. I think she said she's received something in the mail for like maybe 3 of the properties for 98,000. She said she wanted 400 for all 7, which, as I'm poking around, that doesn't really seem realistic to me.
Yeah, definitely not doable. And when she said that, what did you say to her?
At that time I was intaking, so I kind of looked a little bit more in depth after that call, and told her, I'll get back. So right then I was just kind of taking in information because on that initial call, I didn't even know she wanted to sell all 7, so I didn't even go in depth and look into that at that time.
Okay. So I really like, obviously you got kind of blindsided by, her saying, "Oh, I want to sell all seven." In those situations, I actually try to keep the seller on the line and then just quickly get a pulse check. Are you using
Okay.
like sites or what are you using?
No, just really comping on my own, really.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, you could just quickly like take the county or the zip code or whatever, and then just like search by 60 to 100, whatever, just like, and I just say, hey, like, would you mind just if I just take a quick look at all seven for a minute here? Just give me 1 sec, and I just pull it up. What I want to do is, okay, you probably, without even knowing what it was worth, you probably already knew off the rip that 400 was too high, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So yeah, my alarm bells are already going off. I'm like 400. All right, let me take a look at this. And what I want to do is I want to put a hurdle for them to jump over. And we're not going to come down to brass tacks and agree on a price, but what a lot of people do is they drag this stuff out. I want to kind of force the matter and like accelerate. Is this worth pursuing further or not? So what I would do is I would pull it up and say, okay, 400, huh? So it looks like you're looking for top end of retail. Yeah, okay. Well, just to clarify, we are investors. We provide a service to sellers, and I go through my whole spiel. So
Right.
there's no way we're going to get close to 400. Now I can sit with my underwriting team. We can come up with a concrete offer, but look, I don't want to waste your time, man. I know
Mm-hmm.
you're busy. If this is something where you're going to need to list it with a realtor because you want to get the top end of retail, that's what you'll have to do. So I'm trying to accelerate it. And then she might say, "Oh, I'm not going to budge a dollar," or she might say, "Well, send me your offer. 400 would be nice," but just because she said 400 doesn't mean anything. Like sellers all the time start super high, but I still want to kind of accelerate a little bit. Yeah, because this
Right.
is a hard deal to underwrite, and your time is finite. So imagine you go through a whole song and dance. It takes forever just to get back with her, and she's like, "I'm not going to budge a dollar on it." No, I wouldn't give her an offer on that call, but I am going to test her. The other thing is that I need to know too is like when the seller really starts talking price, I have to know the three whys. Do you know the three whys for the seller?
Sick husband. There's definitely some motivation to sell. Even with her saying 400, I do think and like I said, she mentioned receiving something where if she got three properties for 98K. So
Okay.
and so I definitely think there's room for negotiation. And I
Okay.
do think that motivation there for her husband.
Okay. Now, when she said that about the offer, what did you say to her?
Mm, More so just taking in the information. So I was just like, okay, well, you have 98. I think that's when I asked her what, I was like, okay, so you have 98 for three properties. Well, tell me what you're looking for seven. Just try to gauge, okay, if that's three, what are you looking for seven?
Okay.
And that's I got the 400. And so I'm like, I don't
So
really know about that, but we'll look more into it and see, what we can come up with.
yeah. So there's two things there. One, I would say like I would have a reaction. I would say 98. Oh my God, that is an incredible offer. Why didn't you guys sell it? So I push it a little bit. Oh, my husband wasn't sick back then. That's probably what she's gonna say. And then she
Okay.
said 400. And I say, okay, well, your husband's sick. Obviously, you guys didn't want to sell it before. That's why you didn't take the offer. So let me understand how, three properties is worth 98, but seven is worth 400. I don't see how that math tracks. Technically, it should be closer to maybe 250. So what am I missing here? Like
Right.
force the logic. You know what I mean? I like to push these people to where they have to explain themselves. One of the things too, 400, huh? How'd you come up with that number? Oh, your uncle's cousin's a realtor in South Carolina, and he looked at this property in Virginia and he said 400.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't really make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like a lot of
Yeah.
times what people do on these calls is they're too soft with the sellers, like they don't put the sellers' feet to the fire. These sellers, they have the best of intentions in some cases, but they love to bluff. It's a bluff, bluff, bluff. I can't tell you how many deals where the seller said they wanted 400. They had this whole song and dance as to why, and we buy the deal for 100. You know what I mean? They were trying to pull the wool over my eyes. They were trying to pull a fast one on me, and I just know that. So I push back a little bit more. I'm not very amenable with these sellers. And I think that actually, in a very weird way, makes them trust me. Um, so yeah, accelerate this stuff. I sent a message yesterday inside of Discord. Um, Dakota was asking about how to handle a call from a seller for the first time where they're saying your offer sucks, essentially. And, what a lot of people will do is, well, Mr. Seller, I'm sorry. Let me talk to my team. I'll give you a call back. No, don't waste your time, because at a certain point, 6 months, 12 months from now, you're sending a lot of marketing. Your marketing from a year ago starting to bring you leads now. Like everything is steady. Then the biggest constraint in your business is your time. And that
Right.
all of a sudden is the thing that we need to control. And so we can't get stuck on dead ends. Like every month in our business, we generate maybe 360, 370 leads, yet we only get 6 to 10 contracts a month. So we're looking for the needle in the haystack. And the only way we can find that needle in the haystack is by spending time in the right places and avoiding the traps. So yeah,
Okay.
that has nothing to do with the property.
No, it's helpful though. Thank you. I think what I got from that is to kind of press the sellers more like, okay, well, 400, where did you get that from? Or just be, more inquisitive and kind of ask more questions.
100%. And
Yeah.
I do it in a way you can hear it in my tonality and just the energy of it. I do it in a way of sheer curiosity. I'm not confrontational or rude about it. I'm just curious. And on some level, I also just don't trust sellers. I know
Hmm.
they don't give a shit about me. I probably care more about them than they care about me. And they're going to try to fuck me over. That's just the honest truth. So I'm
Right.
like, I know your game and I'm going to be kind to you, but I'm not going to let you pull the wool over my eyes. So that's kind of the energy. And then even with what she said, holes on holes on holes on holes on everything that she told you. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, they have motivation. So boom, that's awesome. Right. I mean,
Yes.
not awesome that her husband's sick. Obviously, that's terrible. But just like pragmatically, that tells me that we should continue pursuing this despite their $400,000 offer or what they want. Now, I would press further though in that conversation. I would say, okay, you get your husband sick. I'm so sorry to hear that. Just so I'm aware and I can bring this back to my team. In the perfect scenario, when does this get sold? Okay, 2 months from now. Okay, so given 2 months, it sounds like it's not really an option for you guys to try to sell it yourself or find a realtor because that could take 6 months, that could take 8 months. You know what I mean? And like put her feet to the fire to where she agrees that this is a quick turnaround. Like get her to admit that to you. Get her to
Okay.
admit to you and say, yeah, I don't think using a realtor is correct. Like you want them to actually say those, and I just get asked leading questions because that's what I'm hearing, but I want her to say it. And for your own sake too, you also need to know what their timeline is so you can work off of that because that's the value that you bring in this transaction. So you've got to know that. I can't bring value when I don't really know how to serve them. Ultimately, all we're trying to do on these calls is if I get 100 leads every month, who are the 5 people that need my help? It's just that simple. But for me to know that, I need to ask the right questions. And then I need to build a plan around their timelines. So if it's 2 months, double closing is probably not really on the cards for us unless they can play with time. But more than likely, this is going to be a cash close. So I've got to bring an offer that makes sense for them. Or maybe double closing isn't on the table. Maybe I'm playing with an owner finance offer. You know what I mean? Like you got to kind of know what you're getting yourself into so you bring the right solutions to them. Okay.
Okay.
This property here, night and day nicer than ours. Not even comparable, honestly. I mean, this is just idyllic. It's flat, it's pastoral, it's got a barn on it, it's charming, it's contiguous. It's one property. It's on a bunch of small APNs. This is like a plug and play farm for someone. It's just too nice, right? So this sold at 550. I don't even think on market yours gets 400. I don't think it's possible. You got this guy here. Well, this looks pretty similar to yours. 61 acres sold at 120. That's a really low price, but this seems more similar to yours than this one, I would say.
Right.
Um, and it's got a house on it. It looks like it's a dilapidated house. This sold lower than I would expect, but still, I think we're kind of more akin to this property. This is the same one. And then 75 acres at 125. I don't, this looks like a nice property too. What's wrong with this?
2023, 2020. Which one? When did that sell? I seen that one when I was pulling up. 2024. Okay.
Yeah, December 2024. I mean, dude, someone got a screaming deal on this. It looks like it's got good access. It's got frontage on a river. This is
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, no, when I saw that, I was like, oh man, that definitely puts mine down. Like if
Yeah.
25 at 75
I
acres, then I'm
think they sold this whole subdivision or multiple lots in the subdivision. So I don't think it's contiguous, which people prefer that. So that's most likely why it sold for so little. People want one contiguous large property like this. This is when people are buying big acreage, this is what they want. They don't want a bunch of onesies, twosies, not all connected, parceled out. So more than likely that's it. Now, as an investor, I want this because it's pre-subdivided, but retail buyers don't.
okay.
So I'm guessing that's the problem. To be honest, this is a really freaking hard deal to underwrite. Um, looking at the active comps, though, it kind of supports what we are seeing too. 95,000 for the 77 acre. It's a super ugly property, but still, it's a hell of a price. 150 for 75 acres. So yeah, I think this is going to be low. Um, I think it's going to be low. And look at what I would do in this situation. Show her these comps. Don't hide it. Like, because you're so far off on price, I don't always tell the seller what their property's worth, right? But when we've got a situation like this where the seller's got urgency, they're asking for $400,000, and my realistic read on this is 150 to 200 grand. That's my
I
gut.
think that's what I had noted on. Let me know what I said on mine. I think that's what I might have. What did I say? Or did I not say? I did not say.
Yeah.
But I think I did
But
not
you
say.
had comps that kind of supported that. But yeah, I think it's 150 to 200. 150, I'd be surprised. That's a little low. I think closer to 200. So I literally just go to her and I just show her this. I'll show the 95,000, the 150, the 120, the 125. We're too far off. I can't just make an offer at $70,000. She's going to say, Charity, you're out of your mind. So I need to bring proof. And I'm going to show her exactly what she could do. Look at this property, 892 days on market, 181 days on market, 296. Like, show her the math, you know what I mean? And say, look at these are your options, Mrs. Seller. You can bring it to market. It's going to take about 6 months and you're going to get whatever, $150,000. With
Okay.
us, you're going to get 80,000, but we can close quickly and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So
Got
there
it.
are certainly times where I just show them exactly the property's worth. I don't hide it.
Okay. No, that's good, especially if I have to drop it that low. At least let her know why.
Yeah. The only thing to think about here, I don't know. It looks like there's a road. This is kind of a crazy road. This Phuket Knob Road. The reason that I say that is if that road is usable, we could sell this individually and then maybe sell these as a bundle and you'll get a little more margin that way.
Okay.
So play with that. Like you're going to make a hell of a lot more if we can unbundle some of these. And that might be an avenue we can explore.
Yeah, maybe I can tell I'm not interested in all of them, but or
Yeah. Yeah, you could. She's going to want to sell all of them, but it's a good negotiating chip. So you could say, well, I could buy this one back here for 50,000 or, whatever. You can play with that. It's not a bad play.
okay.
It sounds like there's a real problem to be solved here. So you might be able to help them, but obviously it's a big distance in price.
Okay.
Yeah.
This might be my second one here you're looking at. This is a 2 acre. Washington County in general, I realize it's very slopey.
Mm,
Um,
okay. Are you
so
scrubbing your data?
I am, but I need to do better with the slope aspect. Usually when I scrub, it's like wetlands, landlocked.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I recommend scrubbing for topo, especially in heavy topo states or counties rather. This doesn't look like the worst I've ever seen, so I think you're okay here. But
Okay.
this is a rule of thumb. This whole subdivision is slopey and elevated, but the actual access to your property should be unaffected. So should be fine. Um,
Okay.
let's go and remove this. So what do you think this thing was worth?
I was honestly after poking around, really 20K-ish.
20K.
Um, yeah,
Okay. What was your offer?
My offer was 20K.
Okay.
So I at market value in my opinion.
Okay. Well, Land Insight says 38. We'll see if that's true.
Okay.
So boom, right? Boom, 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 boom. This is why I spend a lot of time looking at adjacent properties. Well, actually, shit. Son of a biscuit. I was gonna say I spent a lot of time looking at adjacent properties. I was like, hey, here's your $39,000 comp, but he bought 3 properties. So that's not really fair. But this guy did buy these 2 years ago, 39,000 for the full lot. And I just, you could poke around and look at some of these. That was 6 years ago, but he bought 2 properties. $22,000 12 years ago. He bought 2 properties. So a lot of these people are buying 2 properties. Land partner funding looks like a land investor just. So here we go. Check this out. Land investor picked up 2 lots here, $5,000 for both of them 2 years ago. Probably owner financing them. So good data points. 20K is probably too high. Now, how did you price this out when you were marketing?
What do you mean? Sorry.
Like, did you price it out for the county, the zip code, the subdivision?
Oh, I did the county.
Okay. Now, what was this? Does this county actually, was the data encouraging for it being priceable?
I think I priced it wrong and I probably came at market value, is my opinion.
So
I
let's,
guess I'm a little bit under based on what you said. If it's 20, you're saying 38, but
well, yeah, I think it's been the AI comp's pulling too many different, it's too wide of a search, you know what I mean?
okay.
So you're getting stuff that's outside of the subdivision. That's why subdivisions are so sensitive. You can really only comp a subdivision within the subdivision. But let's look at this. 30 on the Genie for the 5 to 10. Whoops. 36. I don't know. This looks like a hard county to price for the entire county. So that might have been where you went wrong. Yeah, these are all for the most part, all in the mid to high 30s, which on the Genie, which is tricky.
What's the goal again? Up to the closer to 100? Is that the goal, or how do you keep up
Lower the number.
lower than number? Okay.
Really, anything under 30 is kind of like the trigger point, I think. Some people say under 40, but I really, from all my market selection, I'd say under 30. And that number should go down the bigger the property, right? So the 40s to 60, like the 5 to 10s should be the most sensitive relative to the 40s to 60s or whatever. But even the 40s to 60s are still at a 37 on the Genie. Now, that's probably because there's such a variation in topography. So you've got 40s to 60s in the last year trading as low as 1,000 an acre and as high as 9,000 an acre. I'm almost guaranteeing that's due to topography, right? And that's big. When I look at this, what could drive price here? Well, really nothing but topo. There's no major cities, there's no major anything, just topography. So that's why we really got to like visually understand these markets. And so when I see a market like this, where there's a high Genie, and the only driver could be topography, I need to tighten my radius. County's going to be too variable.
Okay.
Or you need to become insane at scrubbing. That's really hard. It's easier just to say, I gotta break this up a different way. So if you were to go like zip codes, for example, maybe that's a better angle. Or it looks like there's a good amount of subdivisions, so maybe you just snipe it for the subdivisions, So if we look at like the 5 to 10s, 26 on the Genie, 41, 22. So yeah, there's learning lessons on this one. And anytime you're getting data back that's, you're offering market value, you gotta wonder, where did I go wrong? Because somewhere something went wrong. So I like to try to reverse engineer it and go back and say, where did I make a mistake here? And what could I have done differently? So that's my 2 cents. With that being said, I think 20K is probably the best case scenario here from what I'm seeing. Going back here, you've got this one listed at 19.9, 2.29 acres. Looks like a nice enough prop. Well, it's a pretty ugly property. Super skinny. 19.9, terrible engagement. Yours is nicer. So yeah, you could probably get close to 20. It's one of the nicer lots here. 17 to 20 seems about right, I would say. You do have to wonder. I mean, this land investor picked up 2 lots, 2,500 bucks a pop. So, people were picking up crazy discounts here. This guy picked up 3 lots for, 13,000 a lot. So people are getting good deals. This guy, Jeffrey, this was 6 years ago, but 10K a lot. So, and that was retail, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a sub $10,000 offer to the seller.
Yeah, I think I put in there like probably 7,500.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Definitely a
yeah.
lot of improvement in regards to pricing. And I think what I noticed myself lately is I think I'm like eliminating too many properties and kind of skewing the data a little bit. So
Okay.
it's room for improvement there, I believe. And then like you said, just with the market analysis and kind of obviously the whole county is not going to be priced the same. So maybe kind of zooming in and narrowing more on like zip codes possibly.
Yeah. So I mean, look at like in the begin, actually, I would say forever, not even in the beginning. Like this, if we don't have the results that we want in this business, it's always a skill issue. And then so to fix the skill issue, we first have to become aware where's the gap in skill. And that's why like doing like the autopsy review on this after the fact is really helpful. Like, where did I go wrong here? Is either something that I know that I'm not executing on, or there's something that I just don't know. And so we need to fill whatever that gap is. And that's true every step of the way in this business, whether it's you're doing 1 million a year and you want to do 3 million a year and you've got to triple your team size, that's a skill issue if you can or can't get there. Same thing in the beginning. Now, what I like to do is if we're finding that there's a disconnect somewhere here, the easiest way to build this skill is to make it easier. Like let me give an example. Let's say you're trying to figure out how to learn algebra. Well, if you don't even know the basics of arithmetic, like you can't tell me quickly what 3 times 4 is or whatever, algebra is kind of out of the question. So what I'm trying to say is to build a skill, I think the easiest way to do it is start stupid simple. And then we can start building like a positive momentum. So what would be a stupid simple? Well, taking this subdivision on its own and just pricing this, that would be pretty hard to mess up. And then we can start building a proof of concept and a repertoire and like things start working. And then we can grow off of that. You know what I mean? So we all have, like when we come into this business, we all have our blind spots or weak spots or areas that we need to work on. So I always found that it's easier to start easy to build the skill. And so when I first got started, my biggest issue, anyone want to guess what my biggest issue was when I started this business?
I don't know.
Oh, come on, Jared, give it a go.
Maybe this pricing? I don't know.
Yeah, I was okay at pricing, mainly because I was going after really easy stuff. So pricing presented a challenge later on in my career. So like all this stuff about the 4 ways refraction market, like all of this pricing stuff that I know now, I didn't know that when I got started. When I got started, I was just doing easy stuff like Costilla County subdivision. You know what I mean? Like I was just making it so easy on myself. So I didn't really ever have to improve that skill set until I had to go after bigger deals. Once I started going after bigger deals, I applied what I was doing before and said, let me just scale this up to bigger properties. And my results were shit, like just shit with a capital S, like horrible. So then I had to learn how the heck do I do this? And that's where the whole LIA system originated. But funnily enough, my biggest issue in the beginning was talking to sellers. That was my biggest issue. I had such bad imposter syndrome. I would be scared out of my mind to talk to sellers. Does anyone want to know how I got better at talking to sellers?
It's repetition.
For sure, repetition. But what I found is it's really hard for me to stay in the groove going after and doing like hard conversations on a $250,000 property where I had horrible imposter syndrome. So what I started doing is building a case study of success. So I was just doing small deals, easy situations to where I could build confidence in myself. The seller where I'm buying it for 3 grand, selling it for 7 grand. And like I started to get confident and trust myself to then when I moved to the $250,000 conversations, I was cool as a cucumber. But maybe you could build that by just diving straight into those conversations. But I started to feel I started to doubt myself. I slanted negative, and there's no way I can build momentum and stay just flexing the reps if I'm like down on myself. You know what I mean? So like I want to build some momentum in my favor. The only reason people fail in this business is they give up. And you know why they give up? They give up because they think they can't do it. And I think they can't do it because they have so much evidence to support that they can't do it. So let me get some evidence that I can do this, whatever that skill is. So if you're finding a disconnect, and I could be wrong, but if you're finding a disconnect on pricing, make it so you can win. Like make it so easy to get a W and build off of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Thank you.
So, do you know how you do that, or do you have any ideas?
Not really. Yeah, no, pricing is something like I know Dennis posted a YouTube video recently and I was gonna look at that. But you know, my pricing is off.
Okay,
At least I lately, because usually the calls I get is market value, then I have to talk them down. So I know that there's a disconnect.
for sure. So, I think a simple example, we can take this. Is this county priceable via zip codes or whatever? Yeah, I'm sure it is. Is it challenging and is there more risk for getting it wrong? Hell yeah. So, why don't I do this? Why don't I just take this subdivision and just market to that? It's pretty hard for me to get that wrong. You know what I mean? It's pretty black and white. And I can start just to get that case study, that repertoire of success and build off of that. So my recommendation to you for marketing for the time being, make it so winning is inevitable. Even if you're not landing the fattest deals, even if you're not like getting 10,000 mailers a month, just small wins, small W's. I think the easiest way to do that, of course, subdivisions, right? Pricing is very black and white, or the easiest zip codes. So looking at these zip codes here, like these aren't really screaming easy to me. A lot of them don't have much data. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. We're looking here, right? These are kind of all over the place. I'm looking at the 5 to 10 acres, but maybe I don't market to all of these zip codes. I'm sure I could. This one's got a 41 on the Genie. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be challenging. So maybe I just cherry pick. Okay, this one's got a 26. I could probably price that out. And it's got 10 comps. This one's got a 22. So excluding stuff that's going to require additional risk. You know what I mean? And at a certain point, you'll be able to take all of this stuff on, but just making it so success is inevitable. And that starts with really simple market selection. It's kind of like the same thing that we talked about before earlier, right? When I recommended Los Animas County, like let's start with something easy. Let's pick a subdivision here quickly together, and like let's give you a market to where you can build proof. So let's play around. Do you want me to do you want to go through that, Charity?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Would that be helpful? I don't want to
hmm
like I don't need it. Um, so let's just start in Arizona. Let's poke around here. And let's look at 0.2 to 100. Mojave County, Yavapai, Flagstaff. Um, Definitely not a lot of great counties in Arizona nowadays. I
I was
don't
gonna say, Sumner, I'm also curious, like, because the way how I pull markets, like I looked at Washington County and I did on Zillow.
know.
Um, and then, I kind of set it up as, the sell-through rates. I
Mhm.
don't know if I'm getting the wrong information. I'll have to go back and see exactly what I pulled for Washington County. But after looking at it with you today, it doesn't necessarily look like it's the best market to work in. And I'm just curious
Yeah.
as to what
So
happened.
It's a few factors. One being, hold on. Um, One being that when we looked at that county, we didn't really read it for what it was. So that's the first thing, right? And what I mean by that is I look at it and I say, okay, this has got a ton of topography. So I already know the challenges and I got to start thinking about how I can counter those challenges. You know what I mean? Like just off the jump. So I'm probably thinking, I don't know if I can do this via countywide. Same thing, like when I talked about San Diego, just visually, I look at this and I say, yeah, there's no way that this is going to be easy. And in Washington County, I know I'm going to have flat properties, slope properties, and that's going to make price crazy. So that's the first thing. Like, listen to what it's telling you, kind of read it for what it is, predict what the challenges are going to be. The next thing, though, when it comes to actually understanding demand and sell-through rates, we actually can't do that on Zillow. So Zillow is fine for underwriting properties, but it has to be on Redfin or it has to be on Land Insights. The reason being is on Redfin. Correct me if I'm wrong, but is there any way to sort sold data? How long, like the time frame for sold?
Uh, yeah, I do it right at the bottom.
Sure.
Sold,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Okay. So this looks, I don't know if this was here way back in the day when I was using Redfin. So okay, we can use it for this. You can actually get more granular, which is interesting. 30 days, 96 months. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can use it here. I didn't realize that this was a part of it. So you can filter STRs that way. I still think the interface is a little bit better on Redfin. Are you using Redfin at all?
So I started off using Redfin, but then I felt like Redfin, I don't know, I felt like Zillow had more listings
Yep.
Redfin.
Yeah.
That was just my opinion. And so I went off of Zillow. So my process is I'll start with Zillow to determine their sell-through rates. And then if I feel like it's good, then I'll go to Redfin and then I'll download the data and then I'll go from there.
Okay.
I'll switch back over to Redfin after.
Okay, cool. I was gonna say, yeah, that's the big thing is we got to export from Redfin so we can play around with the data. But look at if you can sort on Zillow, which I wasn't aware, that changes it for sure. You are going to see a discrepancy in data on all of the MLS platforms. These third parties, they all pull from different MLS providers, so you'll see less or more depending on the platform. So that's just kind of how it goes. So I think that you did it right from using the right tools, but I still think that we just misdiagnosed it. And on top of that, even if you were to have read it right and you said, okay, I'm not doing it countywide, I'm going to do it via zip codes, let's say hypothetically, that's still hard to do. You know what I mean? That's still an advanced market to market to. So it's like,
Okay.
what are you getting in return for that? Well, not much. It's not like it's an insane county that you have to work in. So it's really hard on the pricing standpoint, and there's no reward for it. I'm always thinking risk to reward, like literally for everything in life. Like I like quantify every decision. I'm like, what's the reward? What's the risk? So you've got like a mid county that's really hard to price, and it's kind of most likely going to have to be by zip codes. Um, so yeah, other than that, I think you use the tools correctly. Look at it. There's nothing great in Arizona. Let's just take one for just for the sake of an example. Let's go use Coconino County. The cool thing is, look at you can find great subdivisions in bad markets and great zip codes in bad markets. But just for the sake of it, let's just roll with Coconino County. Okay. So I'm just and you could do this on Redfin, you could do this on Zillow. Let's just start playing around and looking for comp clusters. There's a couple huge ones here. So you've got all these over yonder. You've got this over here. These look like really small lots, right? So that doesn't really get me too excited. These are interesting. Good amount of sales data, bigger acreage properties, a little bit more like what I like to buy. So let's see, what is this? South Rim Ranch. Okay. So then I just come over here and I would just go search South Rim Ranch and start playing with that. South Rim Ranch. And you can do this on data tree. Looks like there's multiple phases to the subdivision, so you'd want to collect all of these phases. Looks like there's a lot of phases. So we won't add all of them. We can just add a couple. And you'll see this for really big subdivisions. It's not uncommon. But check this out. You got 119 properties over yonder. This is really hard for us to get wrong. Everything, look at this, 3.3, 1.8, 1.8, 2.1, 2.1. Like it's pretty consistent on pricing. So it's going to be pretty easy for us to build out really accurate offers. So this is the kind of stuff where I think if you're struggling with pricing, by no means do people have to start here. Some people come into this stuff and they just glom onto it. Like they're just really good out of the gate. And then we all have areas that we need to improve on. And this is one of them. Make it so you can win easily. Now, you're not going to land a deal here that makes you $250,000. It's just not going to happen. But you're definitely going to land deals that are buy for 12, sell for 25, like that kind of stuff all day long. And the crazy thing is, with this strategy, you might only send out 2,000, 3,000 letters a month. And you might not land the biggest deals ever, but you'll land a deal to 3 deals a month consistently.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so the same idea, though, can be applied to zip codes as well. But when we're struggling with pricing, the easiest thing to do is tighten our geography, get really tight on things, and then think about, what am I getting in return for this? What's the reward? Well, the reward here is really simple pricing, and demand is very much known. I know if I get a deal here, people are going to buy it. Where that subdivision you marketed to, I don't even know if there's demand for it. There's only one active listing, and there's just no sold in the last year. And there's only one active property. So I don't even know if that's very much in demand. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not even sure why I missed that ad, honestly.
Yeah. Well, it's because you're hitting the whole county. And
Okay.
so then we start getting things that we might not want. Now, what's the reward for that? Well, the reward for that is you get to price a lot of data in one go. But the risk doesn't justify the reward there, because it's a mid-market. It's not super strong. It's not super hot. And pricing is all over the place. There's a high risk of getting our pricing wrong. So again, always think about, like, what is this giving me and what am I risking here for every market you pick? And so for zip code, same thing. Like, it's got to be a hot zip code. It's got to be simple to price. Yeah, you're not going to get a lot of data, but okay, the reward feels worth it. Same thing here. Like, you're not going to get super fat, crazy deals, but you're going to get deals. This strategy here is exactly what Michael Bull did for years. And this is still like most of what his marketing is comprised of. You just can't go wrong with this. It's just hard to fail. And then you start building up that proof of concept and those signals of success. And now you get confidence to start branching out and going bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it was a real blessing for me in a very weird sense to start by doing such terrible, small, crappy properties, because the stakes were so low, it was hard to get wrong, that it gave me confidence to branch out and eventually do bigger stuff. Now, it took me like 2.5, 3 years before I ever did, but that gave me a really good proof of concept where people coming into LIA, they can dive into the deep end and start doing really hard things that might be above their skill level, and that they can be challenging, but it's all a skill thing.
Yeah, no. Okay. That's all good feedback. Thank you, Sumner.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any feedback for Charity or any advice? Nothing? Okay. Charity, any more questions?
No questions. I'll circle back and to the sellers and let you know how it goes.
Yeah. And look, the other thing too, let me ask you this, that Washington County, was that submitted for review?
For the markets, no. I will honestly, I'm gonna go back and look at my market spreadsheet on that one. Because obviously I don't know. I don't know what I have inputted, but I'm not gonna send out mailers. I know to check for sell-through rates like 15%, 30 days, 50, 75, 100. So I know from what I gathered, it was within that room, but I might have, I don't know. I don't know if I was tired that day.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing too is if we're not getting traction or there's a disconnect somewhere, the first thing is lean on the education. So especially if a market flopped and it wasn't reviewed, well, we got to say, well, that probably has a lot to do with it. Maybe we could have circumvented the risk here and either said, let's work somewhere else, or if we are going to work here, let's get this ironed out. Here's how we have to break it down. You know what I mean? It's much easier to do that than come after the fact than we have to break down. Well, we made some mistakes here. Here's what we should do in the future. I want to catch this stuff and be a backstop on the front end for you and for everyone else, but it's a two-way street. You know what I mean? Like we've got to be willing to share. And I think that what happens is, people kind of get rocking and rolling and they've been at it for a while and they start to kind of distance themselves from some of the education or coaching or whatever. And then they typically only come when something hasn't worked, you know what I mean? So let's catch the stuff on the front end. So for the stuff that we're talking about with these kind of smaller proofs of concept, bring those to us. Let's review them. Let's review the pricing. Let's talk about the selection and let's try to mitigate risk before we get committed to it.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, that's the end of the submitted questions. Got a little bit more time here. We're almost at 3 hours, of course. I can't stick to a schedule with these calls. Anything else that's pressing before we wrap up? Anything else you guys need? All good? Okay, everyone.
Can I ask one question? I just have one more question. Sorry, I'm still here. If I want, it'll be easy.
Yeah.
If I want you to review the pricing on the specific marking, how do I submit that?
Yeah.
I mean, because now you told me what to do, but now if I want to have you review it, how
Yeah.
do I submit that?
Good question. So you'll submit the Google Sheets link or whatever you use,
Okay.
like in Google Workspace. But here's the kicker. And you can just add that into the Q&A form. Don't submit you can share your pricing. A lot of people try to do that, but we can't really give insights off that. What we want to see is the work on how you got to that pricing. So what I mean is like, okay, you priced out your data set. You can have a separate tab or a separate sheet where I want to see the exported comps that you took out. I want to see the outliers that you removed that you said, I'm not comping off of this.
Okay.
And let's say you're doing the 5s to 40s, but you're breaking it down 5 to 10 to 20, et cetera. Show me for those ones, what's the lowest comp in the last year? What's the highest? What's the median price? What's the offer percentage that you're using? So it's kind of like showing your work so we can spot check the logic, opposed to looking at the final sheet of pricing. That makes sense.
So is it better to submit it to you or just to submit it into the Discord and do it that way?
Either or works. Your preference. If you do submit it on the calls, either the Monday or Wednesday call. So either with myself or Michael, either one of those calls is fine, or Discord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Easy one, right?
What was that?
Easy one.
Yeah, easy breezy.
I'm tired too. It's late.
I know. It's probably late for you over there. Where do you live, Cheryl?
New York.
Oh yeah, super late for
New
you.
York and Florida. So
Okay.
depending on the time of year. But
That is
yeah.
the classic East Coast setup, am I right? You're living life well. That's the perfect. If you can be winners in Florida and vice versa. All right,
Exactly.
let's
Thank
wrap
you.
up here. Of course, we'll see everyone on the Wednesday call. Emails will be going out for confirmation for the event this week. Hope to see everyone there in Scottsdale. And we'll talk soon. Take care of yourself. Bye, guys.